Eriwo ya, eriwo ya, eriwo ya. Ayakpo, ayato, ayache, ayamu, omeriwo sí pé. Ìbà Olódùmarè, ọba àti rere kí ayé, ìbà tí òjò, ìbà tí òórùn, balẹ̀ ogé èéfín kò yé rí. Ìbà Ọ̀rúnmìlà lè gbìn, ìbà Ọ̀rúnmìlà kò tó ń pa fún mi kò sí. Ìbà Akọ́dá, ìbà Ṣẹ́dá, ìbà Ọbàrìṣà nífẹ̀ẹ́, ìbà Alájẹlú nífẹ̀ẹ́, ìbà Ọbàdìrín nífẹ̀ẹ́, ìbà olóyè fẹ̀sùn ìbódìmí olúwo ní ẹbí ìbà Ifágbàmílà, ìbà Olúṣọlá Akérèdọ́lù, ìbà Arẹwàlọ́fífẹ́, ìbà Ìyáwójú Ẹ̀yẹ, ìbà Gúngún, ìbà bàbá, ìbà yèyé, ìbà Àlọ́fìn Ògúnfìn nírè, ìbà Bọ́pọ̀ Àwó, ìbà Ojúpọ̀nà, ìbà ọmọ Dúrúwà. Èjìjì mímọ́ pẹ́ ní ọpẹ́ ní nǹkan mọ́ fífa fún Táíwò àbọ̀ fún ẹ̀bọ́ ẹ̀bùn ní kò ṣe pọ̀npẹ̀pọ̀npẹ̀ òǹrúkọ ayẹyẹ Táíwò ayẹyẹ ẹ̀bọ̀ ayẹyẹ nífi ẹyẹ yẹdùn aṣẹwé pẹrẹ atẹkùrú pa ìpèrè pẹrẹ òkòrókùn ifá tí mi wáyé lẹ́wọ̀ ifá lókun aṣẹwà àfihàn òfin gbàgbọ́ ara ẹ̀wù àrò níyàn náà wò kó pẹ́ pa ọ̀sà lájà kí a fún ẹ̀mí tí sọmọ oríṣègùn wújì èyí tí yóò ṣe ọlá já làwùjá ara ẹ̀bùn ní kò wá ṣe ọ̀bẹ̀ kò rúpo ṣe oríṣẹ́ tẹ̀mí lóṣòro oṣù tẹ̀mí lóṣòro tẹ̀mí ọgbà bò kò sí ọ̀hún yóò nu oṣù tẹ̀mí lóṣòro àṣewà rè o àṣewà àpọ́n bí akọ́ bí akọ́ àpọ́npọ́npọ́npọ́n àkọ́kọ́ wálé kọ̀kọ́kọ́ nígbàkọ́lọ́pọ̀ àkọ́ta pàtó fílé rẹ̀ sílé tó kí nílẹ̀ kí rẹ̀ ń pẹ́ ọkọ̀ kúnlẹ̀ ó wà pọ̀tọ̀ ìrìnsẹ́ pẹ́lẹ́pẹ́lẹ́ kúnlẹ̀ ọba wà pọ̀tọ̀ bọ̀ ní ọ̀ṣẹ́ pẹ́lẹ́pẹ́lẹ́ akọ̀rẹ́ ilé mẹ́dáadáa sí pẹ̀lẹ́ yé gèdè sí ìbàdí fún ní ìlàjà ògùn yín òmìnira kan wẹ̀rẹ̀ wú jẹ ọmọ orí ti síkún àtẹ ọmọ bẹ̀bẹ̀ ń síkún ògùn mọ́ká ẹlẹ́sìn ìjà ẹni tí ì pínpín wọ́n sọ pé àárẹ̀ òkú ọ̀nà ajá ìkìlì títí bẹ́ẹ̀ ni rere jẹ́ o wọ́n ní kí ló máa bà Ọ̀rúnmìlà ṣówó pé kí ló máa rere àjẹ́ ètè nígbà ni tẹ́lẹ̀ àyà àkìbà Ọ̀rúnmìlà ṣówó kí ló máa rere àyà yìí nígbà ni tẹ́lẹ̀ ọmọ kìbà Ọ̀rúnmìlà ṣówó kí ló máa rere ọmọ nígbà ni tẹ́lẹ̀ ilé àkìbà Ọ̀rúnmìlà ṣówó kí ló máa rere ilé nígbà ni tẹ́lẹ̀ ẹṣin àkìbà Ọ̀rúnmìlà ṣówó kí ló máa rere ẹṣin láò máa kùn ṣàwó ayọ̀hún bí ìṣìkà kọlọ̀bá ní Ifá ẹṣin ńlá o máa kùn ṣàwó àṣẹ wàlẹ́ o àṣẹ wàlẹ́ o wáyé ẹ̀pẹ́ bàbá mi o àṣẹ wàlẹ́ péré. ẹ̀rí òpá akọ̀dé òfé ọ̀tọ̀ sí ọ̀pá kan sí pa ìwọ̀fà kọ́ dàgbàdàgbà kọ́ ní ọ̀sìn lọ owó rẹ̀ mọ́ fífa fún bọ̀pọ̀ ọ̀kan náà ìwọ̀n ìmọ̀lé wọn lọ rẹ́fọ́rà faraṣọ̀fà lọ́dọ̀ ọ̀run èròpó ìrọ̀fà ọ̀run kíya ẹni lọ́fà ká múrò rẹ̀ jẹ́ àṣẹ o. àṣẹ o àwọ̀ ọba alákejì àwọ̀ àárọ̀ ẹ̀dífà fún àárọ̀ oníkọ̀kọ̀rọ̀ ilé ìbò ikú kò ṣe ẹ̀ṣàìrò tòtájú ní tí a ṣe ọba rẹ̀ bọ̀ ní èdí bọ̀ ní ẹni ẹ̀ta ní ìgbọ̀n ní àdífà fún ọlọ́ba rí lóore bọ̀ ìdí ọlọ́ba rẹ̀ bọ̀ ní olóbàrà tó bọ̀ ní nàkún bọ̀ ní àtọ̀ pé ọ̀ṣẹ́ ìfìdíkọ́jà náà mo ṣe bí ẹ mọ́ ní bẹ́ẹ̀ ni kì í ṣe é mọ́ ọtí lọ́pẹ́ tó ń ná tí wọ́n pọ́n àdìfà fún wọn nílùú dé níjó tí eré ilé wọn sílé eré àjẹ́ ilé wọn sí eré ere boboto si lo ni lugde lo ni kode owini win ede woni kode lo mota ni nigba na kama fe ifa koride o ase waye egbe atagorokun ifa ti mi waye din waye din e waye le o waye fe e waye le o bàbá ayé o yẹyẹ mi o àwo rẹ pé akínyànkùn ọ̀sẹ̀ tẹ̀rẹ̀ ni wọ́n fọ bí lóde ketu àjàláwẹ̀ ni wọ́n fọ bí lóde ìláwẹ̀ wọ́n ní kí wọ́n ọmọ tí wá wọ́n ní ọtí òfin po wọ́n ní kí wọ́n ọmọ ẹmú wá wọ́n ní ẹmú náà ní òṣè o wọ́n ní kí wọ́n ọmú omi tútù wá wọ́n ní hàn ìgbà yìí lẹ́nu mi ló ìfín ìgbà yìí lẹ́nu mi tó ìrẹ́ o fífa fún kòlóbò tí ó tẹnu ìpínpìrè ẹ̀bùn ní kò wá ṣe ọ̀bẹ̀pọ̀ òrùpọ̀ oníkòlóbò tẹ́ni wúrẹ́ o kòlóbò kí o wúrẹ́ tàjẹ́ kí o rẹ́ tàjà kí o rẹ́ tọ̀mọ́ kí o rẹ́ tèrè pópó kí o mú ta ìkú kí o fi pẹ̀lú rẹ́ kòlóbò lẹ́ni wúrẹ́ o àṣewà rẹ́ péré pẹ̀lẹ́ àṣe ní o àbóyè àbọ̀ ṣíṣe àbọ̀wàsóre gòrò òfun. This is Babo Question what if I koride fadairo. Just checking in with you just a little bit. Asking questions, asking the right question really is really with the topic of the day, right? Because you can ask a question, and asking questions don't mean nothing. Please like, subscribe, share, follow. Definitely, if you feel the need during the course of what we're doing here, to put in, to definitely give some love out, I would appreciate it. It's my Cash App right there. Let's see who's on here that was trying to come up. Let me see. We got Carmen. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that so much. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for following. I appreciate you for taking the time for certain. Because you could have been in many other places, but you chose to be here with me. So I really appreciate you taking that time with me. I'm just kind of looking through here and making sure that there's nobody that really wants to come up and speak today. Chop it up with me. Because the topic today specifically, thank you for sharing, liking, subscribing. I appreciate it. The topic today primarily is asking the right questions. That's what the topic today is. Because a lot of times when somebody first starts out, it's kind of hard to see what questions to ask. What kinds. I touched on it a little bit on the last live, but I want to go a little bit deeper this time because it's important to really understand the right questions to ask. Sometimes we don't know what it is that we should ask, or is the right time to ask those questions, right? So that's what I really want to get in a little bit deeper today, so that people can have an understanding. Thank you so much for that, Carmen. You showing me all kind of love. I appreciate it. I really do. Yeah, because asking the right question is more important than anything else, right? Because you could have the most best idea and thought pattern and things that you're going through, but if you're not asking specifically the right things, then you're not really getting what you really want out of the conversation. And it happens. It happens a lot, actually, because we get caught up in something. We're trying to figure out what it means, why it means that, what kind of things is going on. Is there something that we need to really work through ourselves? There's so many different things that we seek to accomplish, right? But when we do that, are we asking the questions that we want to get answered, that we want insight to? So we may be asking one thing, and the teacher's kind of diverting it because maybe you're not ready to hear it or deal with that part of things, but maybe you're asking even a deeper question than that, or something specific to you. And that's where you want to be calm, you want to be focused, and then you want to really ask this question in a way that makes sense, not just a random question, right? Because I know sometimes you get on the phone with somebody, with the elder, and you're not really sure what to ask. Because really, there is no no wrong question. It's just that when you're saying, "I want to know it all," okay, but that's not a valid question, and then you're going to get a very general answer, right? Because, well, take your time, little by little, bit by bit. It's not something that you rush into, something that you take your time with, something that you really um, are careful in how you maneuver, right? Because not everybody's going to be on your side when you're talking about going through or getting in or talking to or dealing with certain things, which is highly important to understand because you could be um, having the best understanding of what you're dealing with, but not knowing the question to ask, right? And that's important. That I would say is probably the most important thing that you could do is to really think about what you want to know and think about what you actually even want to accomplish in your life. Because not everybody's going to, you're not going to know everything, right? You're not going to even understand everything that somebody's going to ask you or you're going to say. Um, but in that same way, you want to respond in a very respectful way, right? You want to open up that doorway and that dialogue so that it truly is something that is um, worth that person listening to you and it really engaged in talking about it. Because somebody's not engaged with you and they're talking, you can tell right away. I don't care what's going on. If that person is like just kind of holding the phone and okay, what's going on? You're talking to me. This is cool. Or you rattling off a bunch of stuff that you think that you know, or you're trying to act like you know more, just so that you can impress the person. That's not a way to ask questions. That's not a way to get information. Sometimes you call a person with a specific question, right, that you really thought about. Oh, Bobby, I was thinking about this, and this, and I want to make sure that I'm correct in my thinking because you never want to come off like you know everything because you don't. They don't. Especially if you're just starting with somebody. If you're just starting with an elder and you want to, you're really trying to get a better understanding of what it is that you're seeking to speak about or talk about or go through. It's really on that level. What is it that you really want to know? Is it some of the basics? But if you're not studying physically with that person, meaning if you're not, because that person has to go through a lot of stuff to get that information. So if you yourself are just trying to rush in and get all you can get for nothing, well, that's what you're gonna get. You're gonna get something for nothing, and nothing's gonna come because you're not being respectful. That's a really key point at the beginning of any relationship is to understand what it is that you really want to know. And sometimes that comes off, but you don't want to come off as a know-it-all either, right? You Papa, I really respect you. Thank you for X, Y, and Z. Maybe you're asking about something, information about an Odoo that came up, which you have all the right in the world to do. Because if you took your time, energy, and effort, and you did a divination with someone, then you have the right to ask questions. And if you're expecting that teacher, because 9 times out of 10, a teacher is not going to sit there and go out their way to call you. They're not. I do it just because I know how that is, and it's interesting. But when somebody takes that effort and calls you, you call them rather, you call that teacher, you call that elder, then automatically you're going to get a different response, right? Because you're saying that I'm really like interested in the things that you have to teach. I'm interested in you. Where are you from? What kind of things that you've been into? Now, if there's somebody just like, yeah, maybe, no, that's not a conversation that you're going to have right there. It's not, right? Because it's not interesting to them. Just like you have anybody else. They're human beings like anybody else, right? So if you're not engaging in them in any way, or if it's not something that's really interesting to them, they're not going to engage with you. And some elders are just not going to go there. That's why you have to really find somebody that you can A, trust, and B, that you can have a good conversation with. But if it's like every time you talk to this person and there's nothing that you have in common at all that you can talk about, or they're not even seeking to do that, you know, that may not be the teacher for you, right? And then that's maybe their style, especially if it's a Nigerian, because they're not gonna be like, they're not, they're not. It doesn't work that way. So if you're not actually physically seeking to really think about the questions that you want, it's not gonna happen. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Right? You have to be very clear in what it is that you seek to accomplish in your life. And then you ask questions. Right? So if you have already began study with them, that's one thing. But if you haven't began studying with that person and you're trying to ask questions that are rooted in study, that's disrespectful. Right? Now, so if that person is giving and they're doing X, Y, Z, and if they are taking that time with you and you're being disrespectful, hey, that's exactly when they're going to cut you off because you're trying to act like you know more than that teacher. Even if you have a greater deal of experience, it's good to really listen first, right? So if you called them, did you call them for a reason? And if you're in the States and you're calling somebody in Nigeria, that there is a time difference. So if you're calling them, are you calling them at their time, 3 o'clock in the morning? You know, be sure that you understand that. Be understanding of where you are calling and what it is that you're dealing with and who you're dealing with. Can they actually speak a lot of English? And they may not. They may have never gone to school. So that doesn't mean that they're not intelligent, they're not wise, they don't have something to teach you. That just means that they may not have gone to school. So if they haven't gone to school, then you're not going to get a regular conversation that you would with a person from the area that you're from, right? So be aware of that and be respectful, because that's important. That's important to understand. That's important to know. That's important even to have certain conversations in that way. Because if you are um, coming to someone and seeking to write a book, somebody will know. If you're coming there to actually get a good conversation and deal with people in a certain way, respectfully, they're going to know, right? Because it's important, very, very important to think about what it is that you're seeking to accomplish. I said that a few times today, and I mean that because when you don't know what you want, okay, you can be easily maneuvered, or there's nothing really to talk to you about. Are you going there for a reading? Are you going there to ask about certain aspects that aren't in harmony with study, right? Are you just really getting to know this person? Look, Baba or Iya, or whoever you're talking to at that particular time, look, I want to know, I just want to get to know you because I don't like to really study or to divine with somebody until I get to know somebody. Be upfront about what your intentions are. Don't try to be underhanded. Don't try to be like whatever, because what you try to do, many of others have tried to do it too. Believe it. Okay? You're not the only one that has sought to come in and do and cipher information. Because it never happens that way. It never will. Ever. Even if it's somebody's giving you some things, be thankful for what they're giving you, but ultimately, that's not the study material. That's not the deeper wisdom. Well, they don't give African Americans or people here a lot of information. Well, how are you coming at them? How are you speaking to them? Are you being respectful? Right? Are you going in with a pure intention? Or are you seeking to just take? If you're only there to take, get out of there. Doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? Because those things that you take aren't really helping you. They're not. Because that's not deeper wisdom. Um, that's why I tell people even on live, if you think that you're only going to get here, like somebody say, oh, you're not going to meet me where I'm at. No. If your Ori brought you here and you're seeking to fully study, then that's what you're going to do. Right? I can't force you to study correctly. I can't force you to get a divination, nor will I ever seek to do that, or anybody else. That's really dealing with those three pillars: Okbon, Idajo, Iwakbale, wisdom, justice, and good character. If they're dealing with those things, you never have to worry about drama, but you also have to come correct as well, right? And I think that's important to understand, because when somebody is coming disrespectfully, and they think that they're going to gain any amount of wisdom or any amount of information. So, say for example, you've gotten a divination with me, right? Baba, I enjoyed this Ifa Big by divination, blah 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 blah. Now, if you're trying to challenge that Babala or Ianifa, it's not them. It's Ifa that gave you the information. Don't do that. That's disrespectful. Again, would you talk to that elder like you talk to somebody random on the street? No, that's disrespectful, right? Call them out their name. No, that's disrespectful. You'll never get any elder to give you any information if you are being disrespectful. Ever. I don't care where they're from, what they do, and how they do it. Your conversation will be shut down probably quicker than you know, right? Why is that important to know? Because when you're able to see and understand and be respectful and humble, and if you're really seeking to study, that it'll be apparent that this is the person that you're supposed to study with. And so the best way to know, and the best way for any, like for me, I would always seek a divination first. Why? Because that tells me a lot about that hour. That tells me a lot about that elder. About that, what's going on. Do they know what they're talking about? Are they giving good, correct information that I can understand as they're giving it to me? If you feel you're not understanding it, then ask questions. I record the divination so that you can get a good understanding. So when you do ask questions, it should be based off of the recording that you can go listen to at any particular time, right? Also, with making sure that you have a good, clear understanding of what it is that you're seeking to accomplish. What do you want to know? How do you want to know it? I said that, again, that's the fourth or fifth time I said that, right? Be very clear. Be very respectful. Be very humble. Asking the right questions is not always just the most complicated questions, right? Because if you're new to the system, you don't have to front like you know more than you do. You just, because you want to know. I want to have a good understanding. But what is the best way for me to begin? Oh, get a divination? Yes. Okay, cool. So let's start there. Because in that way, I'm not just taking up your time. Because time is important to the Babalawo as well as to the person coming for a divination, right? So what is it that you're seeking to accomplish? Why are you seeking to accomplish these things? What is the purpose of you studying? Is it just to go back to your roots? That's not enough. That's not enough at all. That's actually going to be quickly a way for you to run as soon as somebody is disrespectful to you, right? So really think about that before you get started. Think about why, where, how, when. Maybe you had some bad experiences with somebody. And you're really just trying to vet this person out to see whatever. But this person, Babalawo, Yanifa, or Olarisha, Yalarisha, is not that person. So don't go assuming this person is the same people that you've dealt with before. That's disrespectful. Okay? Don't be timid. If you specifically think that, okay, this is not going to work, something about this person, I'm just not feeling, then drop it. Let it go. Move on. Right? Don't waste their time. Don't waste your time. If you scheduled a reading with somebody, don't just tell them I won't be able to make it. Just leave it alone. But if you can, do that, because you would expect that Babalawo to do the same if they couldn't make it, right? So that's why I said respect. Respect begets respect. And the more you're able to respect yourself and the elder that you're seeking to study from, the more that you would gain, right? So usually when I wanted to study with somebody, because all my teachers were in Nigeria. Either I went to Nigeria, or when there was an elder that came here to Oakland, California, then I would definitely go out my way to see how I can do work, be of service in some way, right? Whether that means driving him around, whether that means doing whatever that I need to do to be there to aid and do that. So is that possible for everybody? No, of course not. But you do what you can, because that's one way that you person will actually be open to aiding you. Okay, you help me out maneuver and get around in X, Y, and Z. You know, if you're an initiate, that's one thing. If you're not an initiate, then that would be considered something else as well. Because you want to be careful about that. That you're not overstepping boundaries. Certain lineages don't let you do that at all, right? So I've been fortunate enough to be able to connect with a lot of elders from different lineages. I've never dealt with the diasporan form of Ifa. So when people ask me about those things, I clearly don't know a lot about those traditions, the diasporic forms, right? African diaspora. I don't know about those things, unless the things I've read about, or maybe a student or someone told me about it, because I've never studied ever uh, a, a diasporic form of the system. Doesn't mean I disrespect them, because that's not what I'm about either. I'm not going to disrespect you. I'm just going to say facts. Somebody asks me a question, I'm going to give them an answer, right? So if somebody's trying to be submissive, trying to be subversive, and send their female over to me and to maneuver, not gonna work. Why? Because E5 works. E5 Big Bob will tell me everything I need to know, right? Um, so don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Also, if you are really seeking to truly learn, don't assume that you are the only person that's seeking to learn. Don't assume that, right? Because obviously there's going to be a lot of people. So should a Babalawo be at you 24/7 or talking to you or calling you 24/7? No, unless you built that camaraderie up. If you built that camaraderie up with that Babalawo or Yanifa or practitioner in general, that's different. But if you haven't built that camaraderie up and you haven't taken the initiative, because you have to take the initiative, like, subscribe, share, follow. You have to take that initiative. Oh, by the way, anyone that's on here, I don't know what's going to happen with YouTube. Excuse me, TikTok or anything like that. So I am on YouTube as well as E Central Obi Trade. The letter E, Central, like Central Park, CENTRAL, OBI, Trade, TRADE. E Central Obi Trade. Okay. Um, so if things go belly here, I'm always on YouTube. I'm thinking about fan page or whatever the case may be. I don't know yet. I'm still trying to see what's the best options, right? Because I may go on Instagram and do that, or Facebook or whatever. I don't know. We'll see. Um, but my purpose in doing this is primarily to, people have not had an opportunity to connect to or understand or go through anything within the um, I primarily am here. They never seen or dealt with the tradition before. Traditional Ifa. That's what I'm dealing with. So those that are coming in, if that's what you're seeking to deal with, then definitely um, this is the place, because I purposely come on these lives to answer any questions, to break down any misnomers from my perspective, from my experiences in traditional Ifa. Not only within Abigba, because I am a Babalawo Abigba, but I've also dealt with things such as Um, Opueles, I make opueles. You can see them right there, right? I consecrate them as well. Uh, I do give out hands of Ifa with Ikini Ifa. I teach that as well because I started with that. I know those things, right? But those things don't, look, they only come after you get a good foundation of what it is that you're trying to do. So, Obiobata divination, from the perspective that I've learned, um, also not only just Obiobata divination, but learning more about your Ori Inu. Those are things that I will go through when it comes to study from the basics first. Um, Going into some of the language, going into some of the things that, um, like herbs, because I am also a 10th generation herbalist, so that's primarily what I'll be going through when dealing with people. Also, dealing with after we get through those things, again, dealing with Ori, how to propitiate, how to open, how to close it, what kind of foods, what kinds of ways to approach it, all of those things, right? Herbs for Ori, all kind of stuff. The ways to cool and calm the head, the way to propitiate, all on and on and on, right? Those are the types of things that I go through in training as well at the very beginning. I also teach going into um, obviously Egun. I'm a Egungun priest. So I would also go through those things as well. And then from there, without any doubt, going into Ifa and other things. Now, so why do I start with those basics and a lot of other things, Pantheon, why we pay homage, all that stuff, because those are very important basics. So sometimes when people wolfing at the mouth and when they claim to know more or whatever, I don't care. And Allah Biba never has to prove anything to anybody. I never have to prove anything to anybody. So if a person feels like they know more than me, good, that's great. But I come from the perspective that when someone's seeking to learn, they are humble and they're seeking to open up the doorway to learn fully, um, and they're consistent. We'll go into Ifa training and Ifa things as time goes on, but the very first thing to do is always deal with the Ifa divination, Ifa Abigba divination. That's how I do it. And I'm thinking about breaking it up into different tiers of Ifa Abigba divination because there's the four basic primary Odu, and then there's so many other Odus that go in line with that as well. So I'm thinking about doing certain tiers of divinations as well. Um, I, I I divine with Opwele and Ikini Fa, but Abigba just takes over. That's what the tool was that you saw when I was reciting verses of Ifa. Um, but I definitely, the one way you can, for certain, um, push me away from ever wanting to teach you or deal with you at all and get blocked from me immediately is to be disrespectful. Not because I'm always seeking to be respectful to anybody that I encounter or talk to. But once you feel like you have a right to do things, a right to say things, then it's going to be a problem, right? Because I don't have a right to say to anything to you because it's called common respect. Common respect is so important that when you begin to really open up that doorway, it becomes something completely different, right? Common respect is the basis of a good question. Humbling yourself to the point where you can actually open up the doorway and being able to receive insight and information. Perfect example. So when I remember I was training capoeira Angola for a very long time, right? Um, well, I was training actually Haitian now at that point, and then went into Shaolin or something. Um, and it was interesting because I had to not push what I knew about one system into another, right? And so that's the same thing when I went into Angola. I can't push those systems that I knew before into this. So when I'm talking about this system, traditional Ifa system, it's nothing that you can rush. There is no magic code that's going to get you to the finish line quicker than anybody else. There is no I'm gonna just read a bunch of books and I'm gonna know everything I need to know about Ifa or about the tradition from a traditional perspective or otherwise. There is no book. There's nothing that you can do that will get you in that place or purpose. Never, ever. Why do I say it like that? Because it just doesn't work that way, and it never will. Like ever, will it work that way? Because the reason why it does not work that way is because um, when you seek to open up that doorway and you are highly disrespectful, then automatically you're going to um, limit your possibilities on what to learn. Now, mind you, you may have been used to people talking to you any kind of way in your life, but that's not how that works, especially in this tradition. You have to be respectful. Like I'm pretty lenient in that way, personally, with a lot of things, but disrespect is definitely not one of those things. Um, and disrespect for me entails um, just assuming a person has to give you anything. They don't. So be respectful. Be use that common respect, just like you would want to be respected. You show the same respect to someone else, and then think about that when you even asking questions. Don't ask questions in a way that you're demeaning or seeking to demean anybody. Be respectful first and foremost. 100% how that works out. Hey, Ty Solo, what's going on? Come on up. Abo Raboye. So that's important. Know that you can never learn anything from a book. Never. Now, the culture or maybe the language or those things are there, and you'll learn more as you speak to people and deal with people for certain. But knowing that those things are important for you to really understand the nuances of what you're dealing with. So, if somebody doesn't have the money to do a divination, because what I if I big by is different. Agua to us the guru phone. Solo, come on up, bro. Okay, come on in. Come on in. So that's important, and the more you understand what is respectful and what's not respectful when asking questions, and sometimes you may not know, right? So it's good to just kind of ask. Okay, wait. I don't mean to be disrespectful. This is what I want to say. This is how I'm doing things. Am I in a very disrespectful way? Because that's not what I'm seeking to do, right? And so that's also one way to think about it or approach it. Very important because there's so many different lineages. Ah, yeah. You hear me?
Bora boy, yeah.
Akwato Asuri Gurufun. How are you,
Yeah, I
Tata?
can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I can
Can you
hear
hear
you.
me? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you clear.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. Did you so there's a the topic today is asking the right questions. Basically, that's what the topic of the day is. I was kind of going through certain things. And so what's your experiences in asking questions when dealing with an elder or dealing with somebody?
I'm big on asking questions because I don't want to go into something ignorant, especially dealing with my spirituality and my lineage and my ancestors. But it's funny that you bring this up because I want to ask about a certain part of Ifa.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not to deviate, but do
No, no,
you
it's
know
all good.
anything about the Yami women?
Mm-hmm. What about it?
I want to know more about that.
Okay.
I don't know where to start. I think
Well, truthfully, I'm gonna be
when
100% honest with you. So that is a society in itself, and if you encounter anybody really that truly is in that society, they're not gonna tell you anything about that society. They're not. because it's a closed society, right? So even if the things on books or people going into it and they going on and on and on and on and on about that society, they're not going to give you information for real if that's they truly are, because it's taboo. So as a Babalao, uh, Babalaos, Rumila made a pact with the Iami before they came down to earth. So because they made a pact with them, he made a pact with them. That's how we engage with them, because we always appease them. We always give, X, Y, and Z. There's certain levels of them. It's not just one thing or one entity, right? There's many different aspects to that, and it's a society in itself. So asking someone a question about that, they're gonna look at you like, hmm, I don't know. Especially if they're a part of it. Oh, I don't know. What is that? Right? So what are they? Basically, it's a society of mysteries. That's the best way to say it. Society of mysteries. So as you begin to learn and develop and grow, and you connect and you build with somebody that actually is physically going into those things, then that's what that's going to be. You're going to gain access to something, but it's not something that you can just throw money at. You can't just throw money at it and think that you're going to gain any major information about that society. It doesn't work that way. Either you're accepted or you're not accepted, or you're something. It's different. It doesn't work that way. Many people who've got their feelings hurt come back with empty boxes. Right? You understand what I mean?
Yeah, to
So
an
same thing
extent.
with somebody's talking about Ogboni, right? Okay, you get surface stuff, but a person that talks about Ogboni all the time and woofing about it, blah, 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 is not a part of the society. And if they are, they're giving you very, very surface things, because there's things that they can never speak on, right? So that's why I say basics, root yourself in, because most people don't even realize what it means to deal with them fully. Um, that's why it's just good to get a good understanding and deep understanding of basics, right? To really get a good understanding of Ifa, of your Ori. That's why I talk about that often. Because those things may seem simple, but they are actually really potent and will give you a lot of information, a lot of different things. So it's really important not to get caught up in those things. So anybody calling, I'm a witch, I'm a wizard, I'm a blah 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 blah. Deuces, right? Because that's a fool. Because that person that actually is one would never do that. There's people probably that's around you that you never know, right? That they're part of that society. You never know, ever. So that's what that
Okay.
comes into play. So that's why I said you have to be very careful in the question that you ask too, because somebody just set you up or use you. They can do that too. Why, if somebody is like, if somebody, how people talk about masonry all the time, right? And then they go deep inside. Oh, well, this is da, da, da. You won't know about masonry until you're in it, till you're a part, go through the ceremony. Just take that leap of faith, right? Until you go through those things and really begin to learn and study, right? That's why there is no studying without a teacher. Now, if you come up in a divination and you have such and such, and you're seeing things, that's when you get a greater insight to things, right? Just like with Osai, same thing. Just like with the deeper knowledge of Abigbo or Ifa in general, you same thing. You're not going to get a lot of insight and information on things until you physically are studying with someone that's taking you underneath their wing and teaching you a lot of these things, right? Because there's a lot out there. And there's a lot that can confuse you, easily confuse you, right? So that's why I say books are good, but books, that's only 1% of information, if at best. Like, it's nice to read about different history and things like that, but you'll get a lot more history from a person that actually lived through that history. That's like talking to somebody about the civil rights movement, but then you're only going through CBS or PBS uh, things. You won't know the intricacies of what was going on in there until you actually talk to an elder and be like, "Oh, dang, really? It was like that." Still like that now. That's really what it boils down to in any system that you seek to gain better access to. And the traditional system of Ifa really starts and foremost with language, with understanding of culture, understanding of music, understanding of how we engage and disengage with each other. What is the greetings? How do you look at and think and study these things properly? In a way that makes sense, right? So it's good to read. I'm a bibliophile, believe it. I love to read. I love to get information, but a book will only give you this much information, pinhole of information, as opposed to going through and experiencing these things, because it is in itself an oral tradition, right? And so I know in the West, where it's very easy to kind of take on these things and wanting okay, where's a book? Where's a internet page? Where's a such and such? But there's things that you will never learn about. There's entities that you will never learn about until you've gone through that grove or through that society yourself. And it all depending on if that society is there in Ghana or if that society is there in Nigeria, depending on what people's there in Nigeria, or if it's in Burkina Faso, or if it's in wherever the case may be. So there's going to be different ways they approach certain things in different areas, right? Same system, but there's going to be different ways that they approach and open up to you inside. So that's why I actually started this live today about this specifically, because it's really important to understand why and where we ask specific questions, right? Because those questions that we ask could mean deeper insight to something without getting into any major deep um, secrets, but giving you good insight into it, and or just like playing you off and be like, or just sitting there on the phone like. Because I've had those those conversations too. You're just sitting there, and the person is looking at you, or if you're in person with them, just looking at you. Okay, because you keep asking these. When a person, and I'm saying this in general, when people ask a lot of questions and they're thinking they're getting over and trying to get a bunch of stuff, that's when they're not going to get anything. But when you're genuine in helping and learning and studying and going through it with someone, physically studying with them, not books. Books will always fail you, because there's things, that nuances that you would never learn in a book, ever. There's things about certain societies, or certain things, or certain aspects of your destiny that you'll never learn out of a book, ever. You understand what I mean? Ty Solo?
To an extent, um, um, I really didn't know much. I was genuinely interested in knowing a little bit more, but I get what you're saying about, you want to be initiated or, have someone physically reiterate these stories to you. And that makes sense. I wouldn't want to, believe anything from any source.
Yeah. And it's true. So, you think about that with, um, for example, sometimes you go down a road and you begin to study with someone, and then that person is giving you good insight and information, and things are flowing, and things certainly just stop, right? Because either you reach the point where you need to either go a step further, or you reach the point where you need to step back. Because if you're not willing to go further, then you're just kind of whatever, right? So that's where you see a lot of, and this is, I'm not saying this specifically with you, because I know this isn't you, but you'll see, like with a lot of books, if you go into a book like, what's a good one? Not to mean it doesn't mean that there's not good information in there, but it's very like surface. Because he was a CIA agent, right? So he wrote this book on Ifa, and he's going into it, and William Bascom, right? And okay, cool, it's good information, it's this, but it's missing a lot. Of course it is. It's a book. How you supposed to put a whole oral tradition in a book? It just doesn't work because then you can't really see all aspects of what it is, right? It just won't happen because there's certain mysteries that you'll never get out of a book ever. I don't care how cool, I don't care how understanding or how whatever, you will never get these mysteries out of a book. There are a lot that you can. Like I said, history from depending on who's writing the book. If it's a colonizer's version of the history, you're going to get that colonizer's view of that book, a colonizer's view of the history, right? If it's a practitioner, then sometimes there's a lot of books out there that you can go into that may speak about them in general, maybe in a few verses here and there, right? Um, but in reality, those things are very limited, or there's just things that you would understand even if you did, you know, gain them because they're talking in code, or it's just not that. Like you see a book with a bunch of verses in there. Okay, so if you're just starting out, do those verses even mean anything to you? And those translations, it could be mistranslated or misquoted or high typos or it's just flat out, certain things just don't translate, you know. So that's why I say be very careful in the questions and how we ask these questions. That was a good question though. That was a good question the way that you asked because you didn't ask disrespectfully. You didn't ask in any way that was like wrong. But just know that if somebody's going to give you more insight into the mothers, it's not going to be on a live. It's not. It's not going to be on a live. It's not going to be a random
I
question.
was just I was just about to write that. That's funny that you say that. I was
You
just
know?
about to write the mothers. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I I understand exactly where you're coming from. Like, it's some potent stuff, and it wouldn't be accessible to just anybody.
Yeah.
Um,
But in saying in that though, in the same way, there is a lot that is. Like you can go through verses of Ifa. There's a bunch of books that have verses of Ifa, but will you understand the deeper meaning of that verse? Because it is an
no,
oral tradition.
that's why I asked you
Mhm.
specifically.
Yep. Yep.
No, I wouldn't just go ask anybody. I
Right.
would save that to ask you or
Right.
someone else that's actually demonstrated E5 in a particular fashion, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
No, no, it's true. That's true. And that's even
I wouldn't just be
okay.
in a forum online asking people, "Hey, what you know about the?" No,
Right.
no. I would
So I
save
say
it. Like
that
I know
too.
someone who can answer this, so let
Yeah.
me wait.
And so the
That's
reason
why
why I say
I
it like
asked you.
that too,
That's why.
the reason why I say it like that too is because there are people that will come on and ask questions like that on live, right? Um, and there's a lot of information, a lot of verses that talk about them and how they got here, and on and on and on and on. And there's many different versions of that as well,
But
right?
I'm
There's
also
many different
patient.
insights.
Like if it's not time for me to know more about them,
Hmm.
I wouldn't pry and
Yeah,
But it's just it was something I had been kind of ran across, and I was like, maybe I should ask someone that has knowledge of this. So I thought about you when you especially with the caption for tonight, asking the right question.
yeah.
So that's kind of why I asked.
And it's a good question. Don't get me wrong. I'm not even shutting it down. I'm just saying there are things that won't ever be talked about on a live, right? And there's things,
Exactly, I know that.
yeah,
I
and
get that.
there's things that won't.
We're on the same
So
page.
okay,
I said we on the same page. I get
yeah.
what you're saying.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know.
Like if I have to wait and like come to Oakland and sit down with you, I'll do that,
Yeah, and
and we can
there's a
talk.
lot of things that we can talk about that isn't secret. And I'm not saying that I'm a part of that, right? I'm just saying that I'm a Babalao, I la Bigba, right? So there are things that I won't know because I'm not that, you know. And if I was, would I say it? No. Right? So because, but that's the thing is that there's no such thing as a bad question though. So that wasn't a bad question because most people are really drawn to that, right? I was when I first started, right? Because they're supposed to be the da, 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 right? And so, but when studying any system, we want to ask as many questions as we possibly can. So some people always tell me, "Oh, you ask too many questions." That's what I've been told a lot. Like, cause I do, I ask a lot of questions because I really want to know earnestly about something.
I could be that way too, but I don't ask in vain, and I don't want to
Yeah,
ask like I want to ask key questions
yeah,
like
exactly.
notice several lives I haven't really been that vocal.
Mm-hmm. You've
Um,
been listening. Yeah.
but because that's when I'm in a phase of like just observing and letting things come to me. So that was
Mhm.
one of the things that came to me like earlier this week, and I was like, I want to ask about this,
You know,
and
there's a verse that talks about Yami and Orumila, right? Where it talks about how Orumila went to Olodumare. So uh, Olodumare, what what's the purpose of Yami being here? How did they get here? You know, every time I'm untying things that they've done, I've done this, I've done that, blah 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 blah. And so Olodumare is like, don't question me. They're here for a reason. Period. And then at the same time, that's what um the uh Iyami. And we say Iyami because we're saying is respectively my mother, right? That's what that means. Iya is mother and me is my, right? So we're being respectful to them, right? So at the same time, the Iyami was asking, so what is why is Rumula here? What's the purpose of Rumula being here? He's always untying things that I'm doing, he's always doing this, da, 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 da. Olodumare said, don't question me. That he's here for a reason. Period. Right? And so and there's many verses that talk about them coming down and the way that they got here, and some of them may sound like they're contradictory and they're not. And I think that's what's the beautiful part about it is that when we start to really study deeper, and so we talk about it from a critical thinking. So that's what I was talking about earlier, and that's why I really enjoy our conversations as we've been having them on these lives and off the lives. You know, because we had some good conversation off the lives as well. Um, where when we start to um, ask questions, certain things you'll be able to know at that particular time, certain things you just won't. But if you don't ask the question, you will never know. Like the old folks used to say, you know, closed mouth will never get fed, right? So I think that's important to really having an understanding of what it means to ask a specific question. Thinking about it, like you said, I think that was really said really well. That's why I like that because when you think about a subject and you start to go into it, it's like, you know what, let me ask this question because this is heavy on my mind. Or let me go think about these things. So, because it happens to me still, definitely, without any doubt. I'm going through a verse, I'm going through something, I'm thinking about something critically or internalizing the information that I'm gaining. And then what do? I go back to my Luo and he's like, Baba, you know, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I'm correct me if I'm wrong. Is this with this what I'm thinking correct in this way when I'm hearing this verse or I'm thinking about this concept that we've gone through a few times, and so every time he's taught me something, it's been from a different angle, right? Even how I divine now with Abigba is different from when I first began divining with Abigba, based off of those conversations, right? Because you have to find somebody really that you can really connect with, and I know I connect with my Lua really well. I love having conversations with me. We talk every day, like literally every single day, right? Except for today, I haven't talked to him today, but every day generally, right? Or at least every other day, because I can regard him as somebody I can trust. Then I can regard he can regard me as somebody that when he tells me something, that I'm not going to go blurb it out to the world, right? That there's some kind of trust in between us, and then there's trust in the things that we speak. And so that's also really important to understand, because awo to awo, when somebody says, I know that this is like my father. That's why we call someone that you're saying, well, baba, right? Or iya, if it's iya nifa or iya lorisha, or whatever the case may be, um, depending on the lineage and things. Um, because that is your father. It should be, in that respect, your spiritual father, someone that you can truly rely on and trust what they have to say, right? How they're saying it to you, how they're connecting to you, how they're building with you, and so that's why you choose wisely. That's why you start with a divination. That divination, when somebody says they want to study with me, is not strictly for me. That's for the person to see where they're at right now at that particular time, and the things that they may have to deal with. And maybe that study can't happen for 5 6 months, or maybe it can happen within a week and a half after the ebo is done, or 2 weeks after the ebo is done, right? That's the determiner. And then after you go through that, then you are able to go forward and be like, got it, I got it. There's actually some other information that we can build on and open this doorway up. Because there's many a times I've had a dream, or I've gone through some studies, or go back to some older things I've been studying with. This a little particular about Bigba and other aspects of the traditions, because he's a treasure of wisdom. So I always enjoy and cherish our conversations because of it, right? It helps me to think critically about my life and how I engage in it in my everyday existence. Invited you. Oh, Alicia, definitely come up. What happened? Where'd she go? I saw her come up. Oh, I'm gonna ask you to come up. So you know what I mean. So that's what I mean by that. Hola, boye. How are you doing, Alicia? Um, so I mean that's important, that relationship, and then the level of conversation and level of, that's what I was talking about earlier before you came on, Tai Solo. The level of relationship and connection and camaraderie. Like, I don't just talk to my Lou about herbs. I mean, well, herbs or Ifa or anything else. I'm well, thank you. I'm glad you are well. I talk to my Lou about fishing. We go fishing together sometimes. So this is the first time I've ever had in my, as long as I've been initiated into Ifa, then I've been able to actually have somebody this close to me. He's only an hour and a half away from me. Whereas before, all of my teachers have always been like, thank you for the roses too, Star Solo. Um, in Nigeria or other places, in Ghana or in, Burkina Faso or whatever, right? So this is the first time I've really been able to have this kind of relationship. And I think it's underrated when you have somebody you can truly trust and they can trust. Because there's a level of trust that they have to have for you too. That you're not going to go run around and tell secrets, or do X, Y, and Z and do whatever, right? Because it's important to see these things from that perspective, because there's sometimes where we get caught up in one track mind, and we want to know something. I do it now. I'm so focused on, oh wow, this is so a trip. I'm just thinking about this, and it's taking me there because I'm internalizing it. And then I go there and start really building and connecting with people. And then it's like, expands to something completely else, right? Because it literally opens a doorway to um, being able to think abstractly, think outside the norm of my everyday existence in America, right? Because this is something that we do every day. Ifa is my daily routine. Like Saturday, every Saturday I feed Abigba without fail. Even if I'm not here, there's certain ways to do it too. So there's things that I do on a regular basis. It's my life, every aspect of my life. So um, when approached by someone, I'm open to questions and things like that. I love it. And then we go in deeper. We're going deeper. So having that relationship with that Aluo is really important, or just that teacher in general, um, is really important. because the more that you're able to have that communication and camaraderie with that teacher, there's so much more that you can gain within EFI and beyond EFI. You know, because that's also important. If you're seeking to come in contact with or connect to or build with, now I say this out loud. So people coming up with no names and a bunch of numbers, I'm going to block you because I've had way too many scammers try to jump in my mix. So if you are seeking to come up or to come in, no problem. But if you don't have a face and if you're a bunch of numbers, automatically block because we're not playing that. But it's a good thing to understand that dialogue too. To question is to go deeply inside yourself. To question something, you can question something in questioning it like it ain't real, or really generally asking questions, and that question asking the right question, like the theme of the live tonight, is that when asking a good question, me and Malu will have the greatest conversations ever. And he's so excited, and I'm so excited, and I'm listening, and I'm not going to be disrespectful, so I'm not going to record it unless he said it's okay for me to do so. Hey, you can come up now. Cool, come on in. Oh, I know he says it's not available. So you know what I mean. So this is really where those things come into play, and not everybody um, will be that for you. Just know that not everybody's going to be that teacher for you. That may not be the right fit, right? So there's no harm, no foul. If you got a divination, you do the EBO, and you find out, okay, well, for me at this particular time, that's not a good fit for me, you know, because you have to be real with your own ori, and that's the other aspect of it is be very clear in what it is that you really want to know, right? If you say everything, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't have any depth of anything. That's just words. But to say that I really want to know, I want to learn. So does that mean that I want to learn from the beginning? If I'm not at the beginning now, so for me to study with somebody would be like, okay, I want to have a good understanding of what it means from your perspective, or from your lineage, or from your da da da. That even opens up the doorway. You know, um, if you have studied something else in the tradition, I've had good conversations with students about other things that they've studied in the tradition, and then things that they've studied elsewhere in other lineages, right? Not necessarily that maybe it would be something that I would do, but just the fact that there's always something a good teacher listens and teaches. It's never just blah, 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 right? And never that. Because I've learned that time and time again, because when you get somebody that really genuinely cares about you, and that's not gonna happen overnight, right? Because they're trying to vet you out. Is this person real? Is this person actually really trying to study or build? Or are they just coming in to snatch and grab? Or are they just trying to come in and play a game so they can get all they can get and then move on to the next? Oh, I got over, ha ha ha. But not in reality, only got over themselves, on themselves. That's the things that you want to be really honest when you're studying with anybody. What do I physically want to learn? Am I seeking really to study? Because no, that study is not free. It's not. It's not. Why is study not free? Because that shows your commitment in and of itself. Time, energy, effort to what it is that you seek to accomplish. This is not something that's going to be random. It's something you're really going to take your time and energy into and do it properly because you really want to. You're committed. That's like somebody going to a gym. You may throw money at it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to work out and make it happen, right? So that's the same thing. If you're not fully committed to what you're seeking to do, then why are you even stepping into that arena? That doesn't mean that you have to be a initiated person to go study. It just means that how committed are you to studying? And know that a teacher will always know by the way that you're speaking, by the way that you're acting, the way that you do things. Are you respectful? Are you coming in a way that is truthful? So that's golden. Just why asking the right questions, even when you're throwing Obiabata, to ask the right questions is the beginning of really your study in and of self. Right? To be able to formulate a question in a way that you understand it and that the person you're talking to understands it, so that you can get a clear, deeper understanding of that answer that you receive. Right? Because not everything is going to always be 100%, right? It's not. Sometimes it's going to be something else. Sometimes it's going to be, to the point where maybe that conversation will be very little. That stone-faced Nigerian. It may be like that sometimes. Maybe they're tired. Maybe you're calling them at the wrong time. Oh, is this a good time, Bob? Are you okay? Ba, 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 ba. Okay, cool. I'm glad you're all right, because I know sometimes this can be really intense when maybe late at night or maybe whatever, knowing the person that you're talking to. So all these aspects are really important to know before you even start asking questions. So if you got a reading from that person, then A1, you have ample questions to ask, or you should, because you've really internalized the information that was given. And especially if a person has not completed the Ebo and continues to try to ask questions about it, like for a big boy, 6 days you got to get the Ebo done. That's not gonna happen. If you don't complete your Ebo, oh, I'm done. I'm not gonna go any further with a person at all. So even if you complete your Ebo and you're expecting me to call you 24/7, that's not gonna happen either. No, because you have to make the effort. Is it something that I really want to do? Fully study. Is this the time? It may not be the time for you to study at this point. You know, um, that's why asking the questions is pretty much the most important part of a teacher student relationship. Right? What is it that I go through it again? What is it that you want to know? What's the proper way to ask this question? What is it that would be relevant to you at this particular time? And you may not know that until you ask the question, right? So opening it up, really writing down and thinking about these, internalizing the question, not just writing random questions, and really thinking about what it is that you want to know. Maybe you read something, or you heard something, or um, like I call people that that done the divination in their bow, and I've checked up on them. You okay? I'm not trying to be a bugaboo. Just want to make sure you're all right. Is it something that you maybe don't understand within the reading or X, Y, and Z? Oh well, Baba, this is da 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 da. Okay, cool. Well, let's go through that. You know, then I'll ask: is it something that you want to pursue further? Right? And if it's not, no harm, no foul. That's it. So if you had a question, cool, ask a question. But if there's a difference between studying with the person, like consistently studying, and then someone just coming in and sitting and try to take. That's two different things. And it would be found out immediately what the person is trying to do if they're just trying to take. You know. So when Ty Sola asked the question, I knew it wasn't coming from a disrespectful place because we've had conversations offline. I know it's not. So I only can answer that answer on live in a very respectful way because he asked it in a very respectful way. You see what I mean? So same thing if you're approaching someone. Like I remember driving this elder when he was coming into town into Oakland, and I would drive him around, make sure he was, Baba, did you need somewhere to go? Do you need this? You da da da. What can I do for you, right? So he automatically was like, oh, why don't you come with me in here and sit with me? Because I'm already initiated, right? Sit with me as I'm doing this divination and any other divination that I have, because he felt like he can trust me at this point. Then I'm not gonna go blah 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 to everybody else, you know, about what I see and hear, and that's important. Trust is important. Somebody trusts you enough to answer a question, you know. Somebody's feel like you will respect them enough not to disrespect what they say and how they say it. All those things are really, 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 really important. Really important. And so the more that you are able to go in there and deal with it, the more you're able to develop it and grow. Right? Um, and that is art form in itself, how to ask a question. Crystal, come on up. Are you here? Okay. You're not. Oh, you're okay. You did come up. Okay. Abu
Hello.
Rabuye.
Agoto. Sorry, Wolfung. How are you?
I'm good. And yourself?
I'm good. I'm over here working. I work overnights.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Yep. So
Yeah.
like relationships is important even from the side of the person getting the reading. Yeah, of course. It's very important. So we are opening our personal lives up. Exactly. Exactly. Exactly, Alicia. That's so true. So did you get the chance to see what the topic was tonight?
No, I just once I got in I joined.
Okay. Good. So the topic tonight basically is um how what's it asking the right questions, right? And that's important, right?
Yeah.
If you're not asking the right questions, then you're not going to get the right answer. Somebody's not going to do. So like I was asking Ty Solo, what has been your experiences when you in asking questions in the process that you've gone through?
When I ask questions, I'll ask precise questions.
Huh?
Um, I'll ask a precise question, like instead of reading the bush, like I'll narrow it down to something like what is the answer to the question that I truly want to ask.
Hmm.
It could be simplified, you know.
Right.
Um, that's what I do. I ask questions, and I also ask questions when it's life changing decisions that I have to take.
Right.
Things that are important to me that are like major. I'm not
Right.
gonna ask um like should I go for this, like I don't know, like should I apply for a job?
Hmm.
Um, I mean I might ask just in case I have to do a bow and stuff like that,
Hmm.
but I wouldn't ask like I would say not. I wouldn't ask like stupid questions, you know.
So I'll put this caveat in there, right? So when we talk about asking questions, I mean just from an elder, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean obviously from when you're that question also applies to when you're talking to your Ifa, when you opening it up with Obi Abata, or when you're asking certain questions, you want to be precise and things like that. But I'm talking about just in asking, really good. Because I always tell people there is no wrong questions. It's just how the process in asking it.
Yeah, correct.
You know what I mean?
But then there's also people too that will go and ask questions for anything. For any little like major thing, they'll ask the question. You don't want to
Yeah.
ask the question, you know.
Right.
And sometimes you just have to take certain decisions yourself
Hmm.
and execute them. But I believe when it's like major decisions, like for example, if you're interested in, like for example, for me, like if I want to date, right, a guy, and I
Hmm.
like him, before I even start a relationship, I'll ask if it's even convenient for me to have a relate. If it tells me no, then I save myself the time and the
Right.
heartache.
Right.
You know?
Right. Facts. Facts. Yeah, that's a good thing too because I talked about that in the previous lives. I'll ask if I before even anybody comes for divination. I'll ask.
Yeah.
I'll ask if I, um, is it somebody that I need to engage with the relationship? But meaning with Obiabata or as my Ifa,
Mm-hmm.
or with my big by itself. So, you know what I mean? I ask these sometimes these questions that are pertinent. But that I was talking about another case, but that's also relevant to that as well. When you are asking these questions, what exactly do you really want to know, or are you just not knowing what else to say and you're just asking anything,
Yeah.
right? But it's important. It's important to be focused. It's important to really think about what it is that you want to say before you say it, because then you have a good response too. And even if you don't, that may be something that they may be thinking about for later. Now, let me get back to you on that. Let me do such and such. Because if somebody that you're dealing with as far as studying wise too, and they're not actually go ahead.
No, nothing. I was just moving my phone around.
Let me put you on mute real quick.
Okay.
So it's important when we do that because when we're asking a teacher a question, don't want it to be necessarily random, and there's no such thing as a random question, right? But we want to be respectful, and we want to definitely come with a question that is not all over the place. But sometimes you really want to know, and you may have been really thinking about this really hard, and you respect this person enough to ask a question. That's also so. That's why I said there aren't bad questions, just intentions. Sometimes I consider if I'm ready for the answer. Yeah, that's true too, Alicia. Right? So if you're ready to hear it, right, don't ask a question that you don't really want to hear the answer to. Facts, facts, right? Some things it's just not time for you to know. Sometimes it's just not time for you to know, or that's above your pay grade, as my grandfather used to say. That's above your pay grade right there, right? But at the same time, if you don't ask, then you say, okay, well, you know what? That may be asking it prematurely. But then you have to maybe restructure that question another way, because you may not even be thinking about it that deeply. But the way they came out, it may have came out in a one way. And so that's the science of really asking genuine, good, deep questions. So coming from a reading, right? And because I record it for someone, they can go back and listen to it. And as they listen to it, then they can ask poignant and direct questions because they have all the information right there that was said at that particular time at the reading, right? Um, Sometimes you may lose a lot because you're really trying to hear it by writing it out. And so it's good to write it out. It's good to do those things. And I always write out all the information about the reading, but it's also good to record it from my perspective because then I can go back and hear it again. And then I can go back. How are you doing? Check up on a person. What's going on? You all right? Blah, 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 blah. You know, so on both sides of the road. And then sometimes, like my first Aluo, he didn't know anything about Abigba, right? So me asking him a question about it was irrelevant because that's not part of his lineage. Right? Eventually, I thought I seen that, right? But that didn't take away from anything else that he knew. So meaning that person doesn't have to know everything either. I mean, you may be asking the wrong person that question. Um, that's also important. So asking someone, you about to say something, Ty Solo? I saw your mic go off. Go on, come on. Do you want to say? Do you want to say something, Ty Solo?
No, I didn't press anything.
Oh, okay. I just saw it turned on. That's why I was asking.
I was about to,
Go ahead.
no, I was about to reply to Alicia. She's right on point with that one. Sometimes you consider if you're ready for the answer.
Oh, yeah. What do you want to say about that? What do you want to say?
Nah, it was just funny because it's true.
Facts. That's facts. Are you ready to hear the answer that to your question, because it may come back blunt, right? Even before you go to an E5 reading, right? It's
Or it may cause you, like, it may cause you to have to question a lot of more things behind that question.
facts, facts.
Like
Gotcha.
deconstruct and reconstruct.
Yeah, and I think that's important too. When asking questions, to really listen to the answer. You know, being able to really listen, not just hear what the person's saying, but really listen to what they're answering. Because there may be a lot of things rolling in your brain, but they may have answered those things too. If you really hear or listen to what that person is saying to you or giving to you, insight wise. There's been many a time I've sat back and was talking to my little and Abigba and was sitting there talking because we talk all the time. It's so beautiful. Um, and I had to really go back later. Like, wait a minute, did he say that? Oh wow, he said this. I didn't even think about that until I got home, right? And I would go back and call him, Baba. I apologize if I seemed like I was trying to rush through things because I heard certain things, and I actually heard this. Was I correcting what I heard? Because that was really profound and it helped me to think about this, right? Um, and that's also important because the art of listening is a powerful one. Being able to really hear and listen to what somebody is physically saying to you is important because they know that that person is really genuinely okay. Well, bet I said something to this person and they're listening to me. I don't care what position or where they're at. If the person feels like you're really listening to them, then you're going to get a different kind of response if you think the person's not hearing you. You're answering their question and they're not listening to what you're saying when you answer it. That's a good telltale sign too of when someone is actually giving insight and then they're able to really develop and grow within that insight. you know and then we have a when that happens, you actually have a dialogue that's building up, and it's a beautiful dialogue. Because then now you can there's spurs on, like Ty Sola was saying. It opens up other questions. It gives certain things that oh wow, I didn't think about like that. That actually negates a lot of those other questions I was going to ask, because we actually opened this other doorway that I really want to go down, but I didn't really know how to go down with this one question, right? And that's important. You want to chime in on that, Crystal? Hmm?
Hi, sorry. I was what was it? Because I was over here talking.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, yeah. What was that?
No, just saying. Generally when we Lucia made a good point. She was saying how you know you ask a question, but make sure that you're ready to hear the answer too, right? And so I was
Yeah.
saying that it's also important to really understand what um the your relationship with that person is, and things that you really want to know, because sometimes you get an answer, but are you really listening to what that the person has said, or are you just
Yeah.
going to the next question? So,
No, no, I agree with that as well. There's also times that when we're not ready for the answer, but we must hear it. I mean, like, well, we must have the answer. Like, you might not be ready for the answer, but it's something that you need to know. So that happens as well.
the, what's been your experiences? I mean, without going into detail, obviously,
Mine,
what's been your
um,
experiences?
I think all the answers that I've received from IFA have been positive.
Mhm.
There's ones that I wish that maybe like it would have gave me a different answer, but it is what it is, and I have to accept it because it's part of my destiny.
Right.
And as if I was telling me no or yes for whatever reason, it is what it is, and I let myself to be guided by that.
Hmm.
I accept my fate.
Yeah, that's sometimes the hardest thing too, right?
Yeah, that's the hardest thing to do.
Hmm.
because we
Right.
want to have control over life. And then, when you get initiated, you kind of like your life is basically um oh shit, hold on. Your life is basically guided by Ifa.
Mm-hmm.
So you shall
That's right.
go by what is being told to you. The advice is given to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that, just that in itself, looking at E5, thinking about what E5 has to offer to you. Because you came there
Hmm.
for a reason. You know, you
Yeah,
trusted that person that you came to for a reading for a reason. Your Ori brought you there for a reason.
facts.
Because,
And
hmm?
no, saying facts. Like for example, now that I think about it, one of the hardest things that when I did initiation, right? They took away the ocean, right? For me.
Mm,
And it was very
really?
rough for me because I loved going to the beach and spending the time at the shore and doing
Wow.
activities. And it was very hard for me to accept that.
Mm,
And it was part of my fate, like because they told me if I was taking that basically like a taboo because for me to be able to live a longer life.
oh, don't go to the ocean. Oh, wow.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
like I can't basically like swim, like get in the water.
Mm-hmm.
It's a taboo.
Oh, you
It's a
could be at the
taboo.
beach. You just can't get in the
Yeah,
water.
correct.
Okay.
I can't be too close to the water. It's a taboo for me.
Yeah. Wow.
So that was very hard for me,
Mm,
But I also understood that there was a reason for that because if I was foreseen to prevent
yes, ma'am.
um or premature death.
Yeah. Ty Solo, you said you saw the same thing? You had the same thing? Ty Solo?
Yeah, I was told I couldn't swim in deep waters.
Hmm.
Mm, wow. That would be hard. Me and Alokun go way back.
Yeah, I'm still. I don't know. I mean, I don't really go to the beach a lot. I
So
had plans.
quick question. Was that something, because you're not fully initiated, right, Ty Solo?
No, I'm not fully initiated.
So that was a temporary taboo, possibly, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the thing that, so for example, what Crystal was saying and what I was saying too, that those some taboos that we have are literally those long term in the Igbo do when you got fully initiated and it's like that's not gonna happen. And then there's taboos that you may receive um for a time period, right? Like there was an Odu that came up to me way what was I did I get initiated at that point? No, I wasn't even initiated at that point. Um And when that Odu came up, it was talking about lagoons. But it's funny because that just before, excuse me, just before, like maybe 3 weeks before then, I um I was out walking um with my daughter's mother at the time. She was pregnant, and we went out to this lagoon, and we were going toward the ocean. So I never had any taboos against the ocean, but it was like this deep, like this no, right in me. I knew I wasn't supposed to get in that lagoon. So they was go, just come on and swim and blah 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 blah. I'm not a swimmer like that. Right? I'll go to the ocean, I'll be jumping in the ocean, I'll be deep going, flowing in the ocean. But when it comes to the lagoons and the lakes and stuff like that, you know, I knew for a fact that that wasn't a place for me to jump into. 100%. Right? And so because of that, I'm like, when that Odu came up and it was talking about those things about lagoons and da da da, stay away from this and this and this, I knew exactly what it was talking about, right? And when I went there, I was like, "Whoa, that's deep," right? Because then I wasn't initiated at the time, right? But it was interesting to hear that, and so when that Babalao told me, he was like, "That's a temporary taboo." I was like, "Well, Baba, that happened already." I went to this lake, and he said, "Yeah, that particular lake was not for you to go in because you would end up drowning if you went in that lake, right?" And so I was like, "Oh, that makes sense." Because like literally, how you know so deep inside of you, like it was like a right in my chest. It was like, nope, I'm not doing that, and I'm not afraid of water, right? But it was like, nope, that's not gonna happen. Not today. I'll stay out here. I'm good, right? Because your Ori knows. And that's the beautiful part about it. Your Ori literally knows what's kosher for you, what's not. And so at that moment, I knew exactly what it was. I didn't know temporary taboo was a thing. Yeah. So for example, um, someone gets a divination with me today, right? And then they say, don't eat mushrooms for whatever reason, right? It comes up in the Odu. Don't eat mushrooms. Don't eat sugar cane. Um, Sometimes I'll ask if is this is a permanent taboo or is it something that just specifically for a certain time period. I'll ask that, right? Just to get clarity, because I know that those things are what. But I know if it's coming in the Odu and this is not the Igbo do, it's not something that's like you're not going through an initiation. That it may be temporary for a specific reason, right? Like sometimes if I may say, don't eat X, Y, and Z this year, right? Sometimes I've got a reading at the beginning of the year, and that's happened. Don't eat this. And so then I then a big news flash. Oh, such and such is people are dying over blah blah blah. Yep, got you. I see why if I said don't do that. You know, um, and I think that's important to realize too. But at the same time, you also know what your permanent odus or permanent taboos are too. Innately, you know. Like for example, this was years before, way before, like 2003, and I got initiated after that, right? And it was like this was way I was in college, junior college or college or something like that. And so I remember I was taking this Bambada class, and there was this elder who um, was from Bambada people, and he was talking about all the things that Bambada people do. He was passing out cola nut. We ate cola nut. We was talking about X, Y, and Z. Then he pulled out the palm wine, and I didn't think anything of it because I didn't know what palm wine was at that time, right? He put it inside of um, cup and passed it around, blah blah blah. I took it, I kid you not, hit my lips and went out my mouth. It was like, nope, I'm good. And I knew it. Can't do the palm wine. Not gonna happen. So what happened in the Igbo do? Nope. No palm wine. No, what do you call it? no no palm wine, fermented and unfermented. I couldn't do it. Period. That's my life taboo. Lambada. No, no, no. It was Bambara, the Bamba from the Bambara people. It was like a language and um, culture kind of class. I think that happened to me last week. How so? Chime in on me. Ty Solo.
Um, so I just to, just to make it quick as possible. I grew up with my sibling who was very like bad with alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I really don't drink like that.
Okay.
I went
Okay.
out with some
Respect.
friends and I didn't want to drink that day.
Mm.
And they poured me a glass and sat it next to me. And somehow, I don't know how this happened, but my elbow knocked the glass over.
Oh wow.
And I was like, that's a sure sign that I shouldn't be drinking.
Like I'm not doing that today,
And
huh?
exactly. I'm not drinking today. I'm done. I was just like, that's definitely a sign.
Yeah.
The way it knocked over is just clean, like,
Yeah.
like, nah.
And so
It's
that's
kind of you think.
you'll know. You'll know when you have a taboo. Like, for example, one of my other taboos is um like excessive dancing or dancing, right? That comes mainly from my egungun and things like that. But because once that music hit, boom, it's a wrap, right? And
Right.
so I'm there. Boop, boop. And so that's where I had to be very careful because I love music. I used to DJ. Right? I love music. And so different world beats. I love, really good music. And so I know for a fact that I that doesn't mean I can't bob my head or can't just, feel the groove. That just means that certain instances there are rhythms that I know that I can't go into because I'll be gone. And that's important to know. But I
It
knew
sounds
that
fun
one
though.
day, huh?
It sounds fun.
Yeah. So, yeah, for real. But when I was in when I was in that grove and I heard that, I made perfect sense because I knew already. I knew. Oh yeah, nah, I get that. Hmm. I see that. That's not gonna happen. I see that clearly, right? Because it's like you know exactly innately because that's your Ori. So your Ori holds all of that information. Who you are, who you're gonna meet, the taboos, and X, Y, and Z. That's why initiation is so important because it literally opens up the doorway deeper to what it is that you are set to do or accomplish in your life. Even the Essentaye, when the child is first born, it gives so much insight into that child and what that child is supposed to do and how they're supposed to live and the things that they're gonna connect to and build with, right? Um, and like my daughter, it was like spot on, 100% what was going on with her, right? And so I always look at that in a greater sense that things that we are, and not everything obviously, but things that we know, oh, nah, I'm good. In my heart, I know I'm good. And that usually comes up in a divination soon after. Or,
Exactly.
you know what I mean? Go
I
ahead.
believe. I don't believe when it comes to drinking. I don't believe we should open ourselves up around everybody.
True. True, true, true. That's true. That's true.
That's one of the four like one of the thoughts I had when the glass was spilled. Like coincidentally, how it happened. I was like, I don't supposed to be inebriated around these people right now.
Right.
Spiritually open
Mm-hmm.
right now. So it kind of reminded me of that when you said about the palm oil when the palm wine when you brought it up to your mouth and you was like, nah, that was exactly how I felt.
Yeah. Because it
Yeah,
came straight out. I mean, I was putting it into my mouth and it came straight back out. It's not like I spit it out. It just came out. And I was like, yeah, that ain't for me. That ain't me at all. But you know what's so funny about that? So, like, I drink red wine. Actually, Chocolate Shop is one of my favorite ones. It's like a good wine, but that one or Guinness or something, right? But when it comes to OT or gin, that clear liquor, right? Um, outside of propitiating my Abigba or whatever or any entity, me and gin just don't mesh like that. It's not that I can't drink it, but I know it is a spirit in itself. So beer,
definitely. I've seen it. Like that's why I say I want to add that my family, my sibling was a very bad alcoholic. I've seen what
Mhm.
alcohol does. Like he'd
Yeah,
be a different person entirely,
right.
and it's not funny, but like the next day is a whole different personality. So I know what it does, and I have my days where, like you say, you would give reverence to a certain spirit, and then that's it. Take a shot, do
Yeah,
some spit and some rum.
yeah.
That's it. And but when it comes to drinking socially, I'm very very picky because I don't want to open myself up around just anybody.
Mhm. You said since COVID, you said I enjoy. That's what Alicia's saying. She said I enjoy drinking, but I lost the desire to drink since COVID. Hmm, that's interesting. Why did you lose that desire, Alicia? Just because it just wasn't a space or whatever. Like for example, when I drink beer, a Guinness. Oh, no idea. Okay. Yeah, but like when I drink beer, it's not a big thing. It's really not. Guinness all day long. Matter of fact, when I was in Ghana and also in Nigeria, they got a brewery out there. I couldn't drink the water, so I drank Guinness. Right, so that was part of my womb. I could have a six pack, and that six pack could be here for a month. You know what I mean? And it's interesting because those difference between liquor and beer, or between certain kind of elements, that's important. That's why there's certain kinds of things that people take or make that can't be used for this and can be used for that. That's really important because it's just not
Right.
doesn't match. Go ahead.
I don't understand why people want to get blackout drunk and call it a fun night. I never understood that part.
Yeah.
And then
Nobody
I don't
want to have them
understand.
dry heaves and no, thank you.
Yeah, I don't get that. And then it's like some
Gonna
people
do it
drink
again this week.
every
No.
day. Right.
Thank you.
Some people drink every day, and then it's like,
Mm.
you
But I've
know,
seen that too. Ty Soul, I've seen that too. I've seen a lot of alcoholics in my family, like my auntie and other folks before they transition. I seen it. And so I know there's a high tolerance. So that I won't drink like excessively. Actually, it even came up in my E5. Don't drink to get drunk. Like for
right.
example, when it comes to gin and stuff like that too, the same thing with Egun. Vroom. There's this thing that happens in our family where you go, boom, I'm fully conscious, fully aware, but I'm like that. And then it's like
Right.
I'm telling everybody about themselves consistently. But stuff is just flowing.
Yep. Yep.
So that's the Egun. I know that, right? So I remember one time I was around, because none of my family, my immediate family, is into the tradition, right? So I remember one time I had I did drink some gin there because they put it in some juice or something. Oh, danger, yeah. And so when we were sitting there, I ended up doing pump, right, and was like on it. And so I was reciting verses of E5. And he
I
was
can
like, "What are you
imagine.
doing? He's possessed. Oh my God!" Because again, you have to be careful.
You probably were mounted.
Well, not mounted. It's egungun. So egungun is different. It's like it's always present.
Yeah.
Egungun is always present. It's always there. So it probably had a lot to do with my father because that was a event for my father, right? And he transitioned at that point a year late ago from there at that point.
Right.
So they didn't understand what I was doing. They were like, "What is he saying? Oh my God, he's reciting these verses every five, blah 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 blah." But it was funny because somebody recorded it, and it happened to be about my father and all this other stuff, and they didn't know what I
Were you
was
speaking
saying,
in Yoruba?
huh? Yeah.
You speaking in your? Oh yeah, they definitely thought you was possessed. They was like,
And, okay, that's deep.
ooh.
Right, so that's again, that's why I understand. Now, mind you, somebody put that inside of some juice, and I was drinking it. Right, I'm thinking I'm drinking juice, and I'm drinking some of my family. You right? So I was just drinking Guinness and drinking that and mixing them, and I didn't realize I was mixing it.
You gotta tell the spirits what you want before you get drunk.
Ooh, brother.
Tell them how to do it. Like, look, this is what we gonna do.
Yeah, for real, for real. And so
See,
that's
a lot of
the
people
thing,
can't.
huh?
They can't. They a lot of people. How do I say this? Like, they get drunk, but they can't control their spirits. Like,
Yeah,
once they gone, the spirits have their way with them, and it's like you gotta have some type of like, okay, when I go to this function or whatever, if I'm going to get drunk, then I'm going to be like
on
this
Guinness,
or I'm going to be like
yeah,
that.
not like it.
If you don't have an intention, it's a ritual within itself. If you don't
Hmm.
have an intention behind it, you're just going to be,
Exactly,
you know,
exactly.
getting drugged here and there, and it just, I've seen
And
it.
then at the same time, you
I've
don't know
seen it.
who you're around, right? So I remember this elder was telling me one time that he was in his hometown, and he was about to leave. He was around his immediate family, so his sister was looking out for him. And so she was like, because he was young, he was like in his early 20s. And he said his sister was like, "Oh, don't do that. Don't just leave your drink like that. What's wrong with you? Right? You finish that and then go use the bathroom, or do such and such and go do what you got to do." Because again, you don't know who's really around you at that particular time either, right? And
Right.
so it's important. It's a really, really important to have a good understanding what it is that you are setting out and dealing with and connecting to on a daily basis.
Exactly.
You know, it's true.
Everyone don't think like us though.
That's true. He's a
You
vax.
know, they just wanna have fun. They want to party. I get it, but nah. I am very aware of how
Yeah.
much I'm gonna tolerate at night.
The same thing with, people assume that, oh, you got locks. And it's like, no, I don't have locks. It's called dada. This is something completely different. It's something I was born with. You see those little twisted there, how it's coming in? It's coming in like this. Right? So,
Right.
and what I'm saying that for is because Orishanla would not allow me to smoke anything. He was like, nope, that's not gonna happen. Early on. Nope. Mm-mm. Nope. That's not gonna jump off. Right? Because that was counter my destiny. That's counter who I am. That's counter to the things that I had to accomplish in this life. Right? And so I think that's really important because when we understand our taboos, we are connected to who we are, like the things that we can take in our mouth, the things that we can eat, the things how we move, or how we're eating, and how you don't shake somebody's hand with your left hand, and you don't do such and such. So there's a reason why there's cultures that do these things in this way, so that there's a way that you approach everything in your life, and it has purpose, has meaning, has like uh, things that open up and deal and delve into things that are there for a specific reason in that region, in that culture, in that space, in that lineage. You know, um, and I can see where thinking about that now, how um, taboos become apparent inside of a lineage. You know, just from one moment, or one time, or one thing that happens in a lineage, and then it trickles down, and you're like, whoa, wait a minute, dang, that's a trip. That in this thing that we deal with or see, that it could change the course of our whole lineage, our immediate lineage, just by the way that we interact or engage. You know what I mean? And I think that's important. That's really important to understand because the more we understand that, the more we can kind of see how um, how things move, how things develop. What is it
Um,
that we're seeking to accomplish? Go ahead,
I was
Krista.
gonna tell you something. So talking about taboos, I just remembered right now something that happened, an experience that happened to me, right? So before I got initiated into Igani, to the Iganifa, I was already crowned. I had done my initiation through the Lukumi, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I really wanted to be a cop, right? A police officer. And I went, I took the exam, I did everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I finally got the email that I was selected and then I was going to start the academy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like so excited about the academy. So kid you not, I was unable to start the academy because I ended up pregnant with my daughter,
Oh, okay.
right? So then when I did my Yanifa initiation, they told me that anything that had to do with immigration or anything that had to do with law was a taboo for me.
Oh, wow.
So it was never destined for me to be
Yeah.
in law enforcement, you know? But
Yeah.
if I would have been someone else, I would have been so upset about it. Like, oh, that was my opportunity. I never got
That's
to
what I'm about to
do it.
do.
Da
Yeah.
da da. Yeah. And so I remember when I was like, no way. So in a way, like my daughter was my blessing. Like that's what stopped me
Yep.
from whatever was gonna happen to me.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just remember that right now.
It's so funny because I remember there was a taboo that came up for me that not to do any kind of security guard or be a police officer, be an officer of any kind, right? Um, and at that time, I think I just stopped, or I was, I think that just fizzled out for me. 'Cause I was a resident manager for the longest time at the apartments I live at,
Hmm.
still, and it was like, nah, don't regulate, don't do X, Y, and Z, don't. So it was very clear, and then it just ended. I was like, okay, so I know I'm not gonna get into anything like that again, or a security guard, or police officer, or whatever. It just was not a part of what was going to happen for me. Um, and so that's to Ty Solo. He was asking earlier about how I, he didn't know that some taboos were temporary, some was long term, and so some are long term with things that you don't even realize that are long term for you at that particular time. You know, it may even came in a different way for you, and you know it in your heart of hearts. So this is something that you don't do, or that you're not uncomfortable with, or X, Y, and Z, right? So you'll know if it's a permanent taboo in a lot of ways. So that may be taboos that don't eat chicken for X, Y, and Z, right? Or fish, or peanuts, or whatever. Um, there's a reason behind it. It may be to the fact that you have to watch who you eat food from. Sometimes that's also part of a taboo around foods. Sometimes it's okay, don't be careful of the food you take in from strangers or from people that are close to you. Because that person may be trying to poison you. Or that person, those certain things may be coming up in a certain
Hmm.
way. Just be very careful. Go ahead, Crystal.
No, I was saying yes. That's definitely a taboo.
Hmm.
Those things. Hmm.
Yeah, you got to be careful. So, for example, when somebody says, it's a taboo for them to take fish to their head or to eat fish. Well, not necessarily that it's a taboo for them to eat fish. It didn't come up for them, but maybe they're allergic to fish, right? So if I'm doing an ebo and I have to feed somebody's ori, catfish, or just etja in general, right? Then there's a way for me to do it without ever having them touch it. I can go through the seed of ori, right? In Edo, they call it the keeper of the heads, but the seed of ori, right? Um, where you physically start to you can feed something that's taboo maybe to their head because she ate that she would have died, right? But I can feed it to there and it'll be good and it flows things freely because it says it in this in her head need to be fed this, but not her physical head. It's just through this medium she can eat it, she can take it, right? And so that's also an interesting road to travel because like again sometimes you know exactly what that taboo is 100%. You know it. You know why these things aren't working for you in a certain way. You know why these things aren't moving in a certain way, right? You know it. You know what's the purpose of it because it's not really moving. This person may be highly allergic to peanuts or nuts in general, so you know that's not something that can be taken up. So if it comes up and dude's like, oh yeah, that makes sense because I can't do that. I'll die. I EpiPen the whole stretch. I can't do that. So when somebody says that, so it's important to realize um, when something comes up that you definitely adhere to it. But then the next reading, then that's maybe something that you ask. Okay, so is this something that was temporary that I have to do specifically for a reason? Because then that again, that asking that right question in the right time, right? So when it comes up, it's like okay, but if every time you get a reading that same thing kind of creeps in there too, then you can say, okay, this is probably like a regular taboo for me because it keeps coming up every time I go to, if I was trying to make sure, you don't eat this, right? Don't do that. And so that's important to realize too that when every time we go into fire, that we make sure that we adhere to those things. That those kinds of questions are good questions to ask because It may be something that is overriding that needs to be dealt with. That you definitely need to adhere if you're not already initiated in the grove. Because if you go to the grove and there's something that you may have to eat, that's a taboo for me. I can't do that. You already know it. You know immediately. That's not going to jump off, right? So those are things that when we think about it, when it comes up, you have to be very aware, very focused. Why? Why is this going on right now? Do I know something in my life? Let me internalize that information. You know, um, whether it be alcohol or so, because there's certain kinds of alcohol. There's certain kinds of things that you may be able to in this way and not that way. So, for example, vulture, right? That was something I wasn't supposed to eat. But just because I was a vulture, I was like, wait, is that because turkey's kind of a vulture? Does that mean turkey too? That's my brain. Let me make sure, so I'm not like jacked up. And sure enough, don't eat that. And so there's a reason for me, right? Um, and so asking those key questions are more important than anything else because that means your life. Don't be afraid to ask a question. And so that may not be the person to ask. Like I remember I used to ask every teacher that I had the same question because I want to make sure that I had a clear understanding of it because it may not been the question to ask that other person. And so eventually I got the answer that I wanted from a teacher in Ife, right? They gave me a clear, direct answer to a certain question that I asked them. And I was like, okay, cool. Nobody else gave me that insight. Thank you for giving me that because you're the only one that actually opened the doorway. And I think it was how the first 16 Odu made the other Odu or something like that. Um, but it was interesting because the way he explained it with the uh, because he went to school, right? So he was talking about the periodic table and relating it to that. And it was really beautiful how we said it. And so I never forgot that because what that made me think about was a question not is not only if you maybe not the right question for that teacher, but it may be the right question for someone else. Like when I was asking my first Alua who initiated me to Ifa, what was what was these things I'm seeing? I'm seeing this thing, and I've never seen this before, and it was Abigba, right? I didn't know how to describe it. I described what I saw in my dreams, and it kept coming up, and believe me, it was that. And the more that I delved into it, it was like, oh yeah, definitely that. But there's no way that he could have answered that question because he didn't know it. That wasn't what he did. That's not part of his lineage. That's not what he dealt with. So he can't even really speak about it intelligently. Not that he wasn't intelligent. He was highly intelligent and definitely adept in Ifa. But when it came to Abigba, he had no knowledge of. So he can't really speak about that intelligently. So I know for that's so that what that taught me was never negate the questions that you have because you may want to ask someone that has greater knowledge. And B, some things are just meant for you to know at that particular time. And then the other side of that is this Eluo is not the one that will answer this question for me. Because I went through a lot of people when I asked that question, the first, not that one, and then some other questions. And when it finally got answered, I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, they weren't meant to answer that question about the old dudes and stuff like that, in the way that I asked it, because this Babalao knew it better and how to explain to me so that I could fully understand it, and I clicked immediately, right? Um, and then opening up about Abikpa, I was like, yeah, I probably asked questions to people and they were looking at me like I would have a tail between my legs, and they probably heard of Abikpa, right? But just because somebody's coming from Nigeria doesn't mean that they know Abikpa. Just because somebody's coming from Nigeria doesn't mean that they know a lot of different things. Because it's region to region, lineage to lineage. There's things that will be centered in one region that's not in another. One thing that's taboo in one region that's not taboo in another. That's also, but neither of them are incorrect. And that's, I think, primarily when we start looking at it from that perspective, we start seeing it clearly that this is not just some random thing that we practice or we deal with. Why? Because it's more than just, you know, this idea of one size fits all. Because that's never the case, ever. Nor will it be. You know, so I saw that you have your mic off. Your mic on. Did you want to speak? Hello, oh, Crystal.
Yeah, I do have a question, Baba.
Mm-hmm.
So, for you, right, as a Babalao, and since you have dreams, right, do you let your dreams guide you, or you, like, I'm assuming, but what you said you do, right?
Yeah. So when
Because
I have Pacific, go ahead.
no, I was gonna ask you, like, do you let your dreams guide you, or your intuition, besides Ifa, or do you always confirm with Ifa what you're feeling and sensoring?
It all depends on what that dream is, because I am a very vivid dreamer, and that comes from many different things, but definitely from Egungun,
Okay.
because a lot of things when I get things, and it only came more intense when I was initiated to Egungun, and then um, because when people say that Babalaos can get possessed or connected, that's not true.
Yeah,
That
and
ain't true.
I was gonna ask you that because see, um, like I am the type of person, for example, I'm a very vivid dreamer as well. And I've also experienced where I'll feel and sense things that the other person is going through or feeling at the current moment. Like if the person is nervous or start I'll start getting anxious or start stuttering, like I get sweaty, like I start feeling those symptoms as well.
Yeah.
And then I once where I lived, I was at a park, right? And I was walking with my kids, and this Italian lady, came up to me, and
Hmm.
she was like, "Do you know?" She like that I. She was like, "My name is Denise." I was like, "Oh, hi, Denise." She was like, "I just wanted to come up to you because I just wanted to tell you that I can perceive that you're a clairvoyant." And she was like, "You have the ability to be a
Hmm.
mediumship."
Okay.
That she told me like that. So
So
I didn't. I was just like, oh, okay, thank you, you know.
mhm.
So she was like, if you ever wanna develop that or know how to control that, she was like, reach out to me. But I never did it because
Okay.
like I'm kind of scared. But it's something that I do experience.
Right. And so I would say this though, we have as dealing with Ifa, there's so many experiences, so many things that happen in Ifa that when people come up to me like that, I'm like, okay, because we have access to things that they don't, right? So they may do a psychic reading or they may do or tarot card, something like that, but they're not going to give you the level of insight that Ifa will.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying? And they're not. They're really not going to do that. And so I think, oh, thank you, Moreau. Uh, when we start to really think about that as a whole, um, oh, he got uh, maybe pay up to about yeah, pretty much. um, but it's funny because there are each Babalao has their own distinctive gifts, and so there's no denying those things either. But I remember one of my teachers, actually my Lul now, don't talk past Ifa. So though you may understand what it is, but just don't talk past Ifa because it's there. You have all the information there. You have things that's going up because there's times where I got to really stop my mouth from saying something about somebody about something because the person's about to come to Ifa, and it's all there. So instead of giving my just what I see only, I would rather them see the full picture, and then go into it deeply. You were something. Yeah, for real. So you know what I mean, Crystal. That's really important. That's important to understand because go ahead.
No, no, I'm listening.
That's really important because when we may have gifts, and those gifts are very intense and very powerful, right? And they're to be used in certain ways. But when somebody comes up to you like that, they don't have any idea the things that you hold at all, right? Because it's a part of you. Yeah, I'm going in today. It's a part of you, right? Because it's like there are things that I saw, like I said, when I first got back from Nigeria. I was divining for myself with Abigba. And so I was talking to my Lord. I was like, hey, what is going on? I see this clearly. The four lines. I saw all of it. And they were like, you're psychic. I never heard a Babylon call me psychic ever, right? And so I was like, okay. But I know he was educated. So I know that's why the way he probably thought that I could understand it best, right? Um, not until I dealt with this first Babylon that I studied with from Mekiti, um, after my initiation, kind of gave me more deeper insight because that's how he was. He would see the Odu before it dropped. He would be throwing his Opwele before the Odu before the Opwele hit the ground. He was talking. He was reciting verses for that Odu, and just like, and he would look at people and be like, "Why do you do that?" Just breaking them down, right? Like, dang. Um, but that's the same thing. So I have to be very careful, even when I deal with my herbal clients, that I don't talk past E5. I give them the information that they need and things that's going forward, but I don't go past E5 because E5 has greater wisdom than I do. I look at it. I personally look at it like that, right? Because sometimes you don't want to. Well, I won't even say that. There are times when the gifts and things that you have, somebody can perceive them, and so clairvoyance and psychics can see the surface of things, right? And maybe they can see really deep too. Um, but know that Olodumare is far greater than I. I know that. I say that personally.
I agree. I agree. And like when I go through my experiences, like it's not like I go and I tell people you have to do this, but I do perceive like I do share that gift. And I was just kind of wondering, like, am I the only one that goes through things like that, or is it like,
Nah, I
is
mean,
there
so
someone?
when somebody has these certain gifts, like I'll talk to a person, and I'll bring up certain things and break it down and blah 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 blah. Blah. Whatever. I'm not shaming no clairvoyance. Uh, I'm saying that there's things that we see and we know. Um, but when for me again, when throwing Opwele, when I don't throw Opwele as much anymore, but when doing divining with Abigba, I know Abigba itself is intense and it gives so much insight, right? That I don't have to necessarily. I put what Ifa is saying, and Ifa generally says what I'm thinking and going through anyway. But when I'm divining for somebody, I never go there because I want to make sure that they understand that not to take it like, oh, okay, just you saying this. It's not Ifa speaking, right? No, Ifa is speaking in this Odu. And this is what I'm telling you directly from what Ifa has said and dictated and broke down, right? Does that mean I don't have gifts? No. Of course, everybody on this planet has destiny and has gifts that they have in their hands that they can speak on directly and clearly, right? And then things go deeper, right? So there's a lot of things with a locum that blow your mind every time, right? And there's elders that when you really start to see and understand and know and connect and build with them, it's a different conversation, right? And then they may even be a part of certain societies, whatever society that may be, right? Or they've been exposed to. Um, there's a lot of times where Yami do come for initiation. I mean, not initiation, to come for divination. A lot, actually. They also come. Even though they may see what's there, they also come. So you see what I'm saying? So it's not like denying those things or saying it's not important or it's not relevant, because it is. What it is, though, is that a lot of things that open up in that way, you have to be very careful, um, because the person may be very fragile in a lot of ways. And so when you give out things from your gifts, then it's misconstrued to something else, right? Um, and so when somebody comes up to me and says something like that, because I've had that kind of happen to me too, and they're like running off at the mouth and blah 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 blah, all this stuff is happening and this, right? Um, that I just acknowledge them. Okay, I'm glad you see, and I move on, right? Because it's not their concern, and they probably don't even understand what it is that what they're physically fully seeing within the things that you've been initiated into, right? And sometimes people
Yeah.
say that just to get over, but I'm not saying that that's not you. You should have to be very careful too. Go ahead, Crystal.
No, I was saying yeah, like I just took like I didn't dismiss her
Mhm.
because she's from the town and she's like a few blocks away, but I was like, "Oh, thank you." But
Mhm.
she kind of in a way confirmed like what I was experiencing as
Right,
well.
right.
Um
Like I said, my first time I had like a good conversation with was that Babala from Ekiti. It was so cool. It was so cool. Go ahead. You were saying something else?
no, no, I didn't say nothing.
Mm.
Who's listening to you?
Uh, yeah, so I mean that's important because um, I think the more that we are able to open up that doorway and have a conversation, and that's why again I have these things, asking the right questions, right? I've had people that were gypsies that came up to me and was like, "Oh, well, you know what I see? Blah 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 blah. Your oral is so clear and blah 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 blah." Right? Okay, cool. So they're not going to tell me anything more than what my ori or my odu that broke me down from the Igbo do is going to tell me. Sometimes, nine times out of ten, they're talking it from what maybe they see from that perspective, right? And that's fine because you're just reiterating things that I already know about my odu. Cool. Um, in a lot of ways as well, um, we have to be very careful on who we allow in our space. You know what I mean? Fully. Who do we actually engage and disengage with on a regular basis? Because a lot of people are many things. There's many things that can happen and that can attack you and that can connect to you and that can build with you. That's why a Babala or Yanifa always has medicines. Like somebody's telling me, "Oh, if I burn sage, this such and such." I was like, "If an Osho want to jack you up, sage ain't gonna do nothing. If a Iami want to jack you up, sage ain't gonna do nothing." Yeah, don't no exactly, Monroe. Don't let random people touch your head physically. That's facts. That's facts.
Yeah.
Because you don't know.
Uh-uh. No, I
You know,
agree
you're gonna
completely.
take the bait. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying I agree completely. I don't let anyone touch my head, except for my hairstylist that she does my, when she does my haircut. But that's about it.
Right, right. Yeah. See, that ain't happen these days. Nah, but
Yeah, and I also try to stay on top of my aqua too, and like with the odals or things that I'm going through in life. Yeah, I I try to stick to it as much as I can.
Exactly. Exactly. Especially with the things that you know. Like there may be things that people will come up and give you insight to, but you know that we have something greater than. We can always go back to Ifa because you've been fully initiated to Ifa. You can go back in and ask directly what's going on and what's happening and da 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 da. And then there is an old dude that's connected to it. You know what I mean? It's not just the words. Now you can go in deeper and get the ebo done in a certain way. You know what I mean? And that's important. That's highly, highly important because that's the difference of really allowing. Just like there are many, 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 many entities that exist on this planet that have been here just as long as us and far longer. I told like 7 people things. One person cried. Yeah, yeah. And so, like that's an issue that I had when I was younger, dealing with my family members. Right. So I would see something. My grandmother is the one who pulled me to the side in that instance. She was like, and it happened again later when it's Bible. I said, "Don't see so deep." Right. But my grandmother was like, sometimes when you tell people about things, he's like, when you tell things about baby, you got to be careful because sometimes they ain't ready to hear it. And it's true, right? Because I would just be, yeah, such and such about you. You got to be watch out, da, 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 da. And I would call family. I remember at one point, and family would be like, immediate family. They would look at me like, yeah, nah, 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 nah. Don't call me with that, right? And so that's where some things are offered just for you. Some things are just for you sometimes, and you don't need to say it to everybody. Um, like there's things about people. I remember when I was an undergrad and I was this girl was like, oh, I saw the handwriting on the wall. I was like, oh, she about to get turned out for real. She's from Hoboken nowhere, and she came to California, and she's in this space, and they about to try to do what they can to her and move on, right? But she took it like, oh, you just don't like white people. Nah, these cats is trying to turn you out. They trying to really like work you over because you green as a new leaf, right? But because I was drinking, they were soft mountain me literally my absolute. uh, and so it's important. So it's important to really think about the words we speak, the actions that we take. That's what E5 tells us in general, right? To be careful of how we approach things, how we connect to things, and what we speak about to things. Some things are only for us. I had to learn that the hard way too. That some things that I download or get or connect to is strictly for me. And then I can apply it to maybe something that I'm doing. And then I always go to my Aluo and ask and build with them because I have that kind of relationship with them. Not everybody can do that though. Not everybody has that they can go to, that they can go talk to them. Sometimes you gotta let people suffer too. Yeah, because it's their plight. You wanna go into that a little deeper, Ty Solo? Hmm.
So I, I have a friend that, well, not a friend, but someone I know
Hmm.
or knew, and they're on drugs. So it's like you can have remedies, you can have solutions, you can tell them what's going on with them spiritually,
Right.
but that's not going to change nothing if they don't want to change.
Exactly. Exactly.
So in that case, you got to let them suffer and come into their own, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. What's interesting about that too, to piggyback off of that, I remember when well, not my great aunt, but my aunt, my mom's sister, and I was she got really, really, really sick. She had cancer. And so she was going through it. And I did some work for her. And when I did, I was like, they, it came back, oh, it's in benign. It's not there no more. Blah, 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 right? And then she went back to doing the same exact thing she was doing before. Heavy alcoholic. Talking about that earlier. I saw that, right? Heavy alcoholic.
Exactly.
And so I was like, you gonna bring, and then went back to chain smoking again. But it wasn't anything to do. It was so deep embedded inside of her, this pain, this stuff that she was dealing with, that she wasn't really ready to deal with all that stuff. She wasn't ready. So no matter what I did, so I remember asking Ifa at the time, and I'm like, so should I do this work again for her? No. Because she's not, even though I'm attached to her, and that's my aunt, and I love her, right? She's not willing to make any changes herself. So again, that goes back to her Ori again. Her Ori wasn't willing to change. She didn't want to. She wanted to change that. She wanted to bury that. She wanted to suppress that. She wanted to not let it be something on the forefront because it's something she could not deal with. And I think that's the hardest part, because you have so much love for this person, but it's not always for you to tell this person anything. They literally got to figure it out for themselves, or they literally have to do things. So even though I wanted to do something, I was told not to by Ifa, because it wouldn't have worked, because she wasn't going to do it. You know, I told my friend his dad's going out at the end of the year. He cried. Yeah, I mean that's another case in point, Moreau. I knew my pops was going to transition 3 weeks before he transitioned, because an Odu came up that talks about that, right? So I knew he was going to transition. That was hard. Who I tell my mom all that? I can't tell my mom that. Who am I tell my siblings that are deeply embedded in Jehovah's Witnesses? No, they're not going to accept that, right? But it was hard to hold that in. But at the same time, I had to come to peace with it too. And that helped me a few weeks before it happened to come to terms with it. And I think that was really intense for me. But it also shows that because I went to my Egun, my shrine, and everything else, and I had to open the door up in a different way. I had to connect in a different way. I had to deal with it in a different way. And so that when that day came, I was at ease. I was at peace, because I already got a chance to really make my peace fully in with Egun, with the Egungun shrine, with that our lineage, that paternal lineage. So much more was revealed in that time as well. My client told me about my mom. Everyone else, even Anifas and Mami Wata priest, couldn't see it. Yeah, so I mean, it just comes like that, you know. Um, but for me, it was 3-5, and I knew it, and it was like, whoa. I mean, I remember studying this and hearing about this, but to have it physically in your face and be like, oh wow, what do I do now? Okay, let me start to feed so that it's an easy transition. So that things flourishing in XYZ. Because remember, at this time, they weren't even speaking to me, because they said, oh, you're doing that voodoo, blah, blah, blah. So it's not like a conversation I could have had with them anyway. And that's hard. That's really hard. But because we have that option, we have something that is far greater than anything else. When you have Ifa, you can go ask. When you have these other entities and things that you deal with, you can go see, you can go investigate, you can go connect to these things far greater than anything else. And that's what makes it beautiful, because we're not just stuck in this grief and grief alone. When I said money was coming. Yeah, right? Exactly. Or somebody come up to you, oh, take out this such and such. Whatever. Because this is somebody's sick. But when it came down to really recognizing and dealing with, they didn't want to hear or see it, right? So that's that aspect too. As my saving grace in the family was my grandmother. because she dealt with hoodoo and all this other stuff. She dealt with these things. So that's the person I could actually physically talk to. If I didn't have my grandmother, if I didn't have like maybe one, well, no, just my grandmother, really, it would have been hard, really hard. Because how many times, how many ways can you deal with things and see things and connect to things, and you'd be like, okay, what am I seeing? Am I going cuckoo? Because as a child, I would say things to people, and my mom would just be like, and these kids, huh? Because it would come up, and I would see it, and so that's where a knowingness is not always like psychic. A knowingness, sometimes you just know things. It's something that you, right, right. That's hard, and that's hard, and that's really hard. It is because feeling like you're alone in the midst of doing something or dealing with something, and that who do you have conversations like that? I felt like that when I first came back from the Grove of Ifa. There was literally nobody here that I could talk to. It was really hard. It was really, really, really hard. They didn't know. Yeah, right. I remember my mom once told me, she was like, "Well, can you explain it? Break it down." Da 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 da. Right. So I knew my bounds. I knew what was going on. I knew what it was, and I'm like, I'm not going there because I'm not going. That's actually what my grandmother told me too. She's like, don't go there with them because they would never understand what you're dealing with, ever. Because there's certain things inside of the family that just inside the family. On my mother's side, that folks wasn't really trying to hear, especially my moms and my pops and they were all Jehovah's Witnesses. They weren't trying to hear all of that. Yeah, she did. She really did. She really, really did. And that's why so funny. That's why I can't go to Egun, my masquerade, my Egungun, without dealing with my grandmother first. That's why I can't do that. You know, which is really actually coming up to her space too. But yeah, so that's important. That's really important to have. That's why I even started again. I go back to why I started these lives like this is because, hmm but well, okay, because I know it gonna go in another way too. But that's you know, lineage to lineage is always gonna be a little different. Because the Gungun Masquerade actually was a female society 2,000 years before it was a male society. It looked like those things what they call ghosts. It was like one big long sheet with the eyes poked out. Uh, I am a family now. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. So that's important. Those are things important to really look at it and see. It was for. Oh, oh, okay, got you. Um, yeah. So it's intense because those things are when you start to really think about how important our ancestors actually are in our life. They play a major role. It could be a grandfather, it could be a grandmother, it could be somebody that's already gone that's got your back and you didn't even realize it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it was really interesting in a lot of ways when we think about how um, these things open up and studying and learning and developing and growing. There's no end to what we do. There is no end. There is no end at all in sight. Pistol, you have your mic open. You want to speak on that?
No, I'm listening. I'm not sure it was open because I'm typing over here. So
Oh,
no, I'm listening to you.
okay. Yeah, so that's it's important. That's why going back to the topic of what the live is asking the right question. That's why asking the right question is always important. So I remember asking my grandmother questions, and when I was really young, she'd be looking at me, cracking up, shaking her head. It's like, boy, if your parents heard you say that, you'd be in a padded room somewhere, but I know what you're saying, right? That's exactly what you said. Like, yeah, well, you have to know who to talk to, who to ask questions to, and who not to, right? Because not everything is just like, oh my God, what's going on? Because that's more of a Western style of thinking of things, right? But if we really start to think about the people who, like, there were times where I remember being on all the way through junior high. Well, we called junior high back then. Uh, so the divide has always been there. Yeah, it has. It really has. Um, we called junior high. So junior high to high school, there was this cat that I'll see every day. He would come and ask me these questions. So what? He said, "Do you know how to hear sound and see color?" Oh, see sound and hear color. That's what he said. You know how to see sound and hear color. And so every day he would ask me the same exact question. And I was like, first I thought this guy was crazy. And then I was like, oh no, he actually is trying to make me think critically about something. Right? So certain people will hear you and see you all the time and you not even realize it. That they actually did was trying to get you to see or understand or know certain things about yourself. And not even because he wasn't doing nothing creepy. He was just asking me the same question. So hey, young blood, you know what how you see sound and hear color? You figure it out yet? Nah. What you mean see sound and hear color, right? But then eventually I started coming up with different stuff. I was like, oh, because it made me think. It made me go research. It made me go do these things. Like I was like, oh, well, this is what synesthesia. That's what came up. He's like, what synesthesia? What's that? I was like, well, you see sound and hear color, right? And so he was like, oh, I got to get back to you on that. I got to see what that is. And so we were going back and forth and whatever, but it's really pushing me to see things in another way. Brandon person, don't know him from Adam, don't even know what he was, who he was, what was going on with him. But he would ask me that every day without fail. Because I would see him on the bus and it would be random. Like it'd be 3-4 weeks to go by and he'd come back. Oh, you got an answer for me yet? Yep. Yeah. Synesthesia. Synesthesia. But I know what he was asking me, but he was trying to get me to go deeper. Yeah. So again, him asking me that question put me on a whole different trajectory and thinking about things or delving into things that wasn't a person. Oh yeah, heck yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a different conversation in itself. But so when you go down that road and like this person I would see randomly, and not even something or someone that I would know anything about or connect to in any way. Yeah, exactly. It was actually the same thing. Yep. A homeless man. Yep. And he would every day he would come up and just be, ask questions or he would look out for me more so than anything else. Um, Especially when I was, little knucklehead, he would look out for me. And he would really just be like, he would never really say nothing to me. He'd just be like, oh, if he did, he'd be like, watch yourself. And he'd keep going, like, dang, okay. The, the, Yep, God bless you. I drove off and stopped sign. I looked back and he disappeared. Yeah, oh man. Yeah. I've had dreams like that. And then to see that person in real life. You ever have had a dream about somebody, like a deep, deep dream, and then you see him in real life? You even have a conversation with them, but you like looking at him trying to figure out where you know him from. And then when you leave that person, you be like, oh, that's where I know this person from. That's what's going on. Okay. Because it comes up again in your dream. Yeah, that's happened to me a few times. It's really interesting in that way. Man, things that if I had E5 when I was younger, phew, that happened to me with this homeless woman. She didn't talk to, but I'd give her food, like offerings. Yeah, yep, yep. Uh, there's one person that um I think was deceased, and could I always be out and about when I was younger, especially in my teenage years. Um, because I would just hop on a bus randomly all the time and just go. If it was a bus that I knew I could just hop on the other side of the street and take it back, I would take it to wherever it went to the end of the line so that I would see where it went. And, writing poetry, just kind of doing my thing and kind of experiencing, looking at what's around me. Um, and I remember one time this elder woman got on there and I'm like, wow, huh, funny think about it, speaking about it now. But she was, we had a good deep conversation. And then I looked in the mirror as I was talking to her. I didn't see nobody. I was like, oh, like, okay. Let me close my mouth while I'm talking, so folks won't be thinking about the padded room for me. Yeah, for real. That's true though. But so there are so many things that exist on this earth, just as long as we have been on this earth and longer. Um, and I think that's the beautiful part about it. So when we ask questions about these things, how do we ask the questions about that, or ask questions of these things, of these entities, right? In a way that makes perfect sense, so that you can gain insight. Because sometimes when you run from those, then other things can happen. But if something actually really is information to be gotten or things to be developed in alignment with it, there's no end to the development or possibilities, because it's so much. And it was beautiful, because it happened once with her. Beyond that, I've never seen her or heard from her or seen anything like her again. And it was an elder black woman. I just was like, dang, that's a trip. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. But that's the beautiful part about E5 now. Like I said, if I had E5 then, what I had E5 now, um, the questions I would ask, the things that I would engage with. But usually when I'm thinking of something and it comes up and then I can go into it a little deeper, I always will ask. Always will. There's a purpose for it. That's what I realized, that everything that comes up in a certain way in a dream, I get up and either I write it down, or like symbols is what's coming up mainly. And then I'll go either to Egun or go to Ifa, because every morning I go, when so after this, after I get off a live, but usually if I'm not on live, I'll get up and ask, talk to Ifa. And that's primarily what that would entail. I would get up and be like, just go into what those dreams were. So that's why it's good to write your dreams down, because you start to get a narrative that builds up. And sometimes it's not just the people that you see, is that the things that you want to engage with. Some the things that you don't see or that you just felt. And those things spur up questions. So believe me, anything that's going on in my life, again, that's the beauty of having a good teacher. I go to my Luo. I talk to him about it. I build with him about it. I go into it. And then he gives me insight. And then if he can't give me insight, he'll give me a direction to go. Right? And that's what it's supposed to be. Because the elders doesn't always have to know everything. Sometimes they just give you a direction. You know? Um, and I think that's also what's beautiful too, is that when you do have somebody that does that, then you can actually really go in a little deeper. You can ask these different questions. Join this, subscribe for 1 month. So my thing also is when asking someone, elder or otherwise, a question, like I touched on earlier, what exactly are we seeking to accomplish by asking this question? Is it just a question? Oh yeah, they teach me all the time. Believe me. Sometimes it's overwhelming, but it's good. When it's overwhelming, that means I need to sit back and take my time and write it out and really delve into it and get into a deep conversation with my Lord. That's why I know that first and foremost. When that happens, I know that's what's going on with that specifically. I'm gonna get out of here in the next 14 minutes. I think 2:30 is gonna be a time because I'm, it's my daughter's spring break, so we're gonna go and do a thing, go out and about. But oh, it's 4 a.m. Wow, yeah, Otapo. Yeah, I know you. That's right. It's 3 hours later.
Over here
That's
it's
right. It's
five
almost five.
seventeen.
Huh?
Over here, East Coast 5:17.
Oh wow. Yeah, in the East Coast. East
Yeah.
Coast. 6 here. Whew. Yeah, it's only 2:17 here. I'm not that late. Linda, thank you for coming up. Did you hear the topic? Hello? Linda Camp? Hello? Hello? Okay. Hey, come back up when you come open it up. We can hear it. Yeah, so that's what's going on with me. It's 2:18. I'm gonna go. So Linda, if you do have a question, definitely unmute yourself. You can ask a question. Um, if you okay. Um, yeah. So I'm. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. Yeah. So thank you for engaging with me, being here with me. So the question specifically today, just in case you didn't hear it, Linda, was the topic was asking the right question, right? To your Luo, to your teacher, to what it is that you seek in your life, the people that you engage with and connect to and build with, um, knowing how to ask questions correctly, specifically with Ifa, because that's what we do. That's what I do. I'm a traditional Babalao. Um, and so that's what we're talking about. So if you definitely want to chime in, please chime in. Thank you, Crystal, for that 10 roses. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Um, but yeah, so that's what we've been talking about for the last few hours. How many hours I've been talking? I've been talking a long time. Yeah, I'm about to travel today, so I'm about to get off here and start packing, getting ready. Um, but yeah, anyone with any questions or anything like that, feel free to ask. I'm always open to answer questions as long as it's respectful, of course. Anybody want to come up? Also, definitely feel free to come through. It's you know, if you want to come in and chop it up, you definitely can. For the next 10 minutes, 11 minutes, I'll be here. Crystal, did you want to chime in before I got out of here?
No, it's okay. I understand you're tired and you have to
Well,
go do your stuff too.
not necessarily about tired. I'm wide awake,
You're right away.
but
Yeah, but you have things to do, right?
yeah, I just getting things ready for get out of here in a few hours, in about 8 hours or so. Oh, thank you. I appreciate you, Alicia, for coming. I appreciate it. Yeah, appreciate your conversation always, insights, comments. Yeah. Any last words, Crystal?
No, just good night and enjoy your day with your daughter.
I appreciate it. We're gonna actually the whole week we're traveling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have fun.
I think I'm gonna do a 'cause I'm going to Vegas. I think I'm gonna do a live in Vegas. Chop it up with
Nice.
folks up there, so we can definitely get that in there. Um, yeah. Any thank you for coming up, Crystal, because you could have been in a lot of places. I appreciate you sharing your time, space, and energy with me. Thank you very much.
Anytime.
Yep, yep, yep. Thank you for sharing your insights and things. Anyone that's seeking to get a Ifa divination, Ifa Abigba divination, because I am a Babalawo ala Abigba, or seeking to gain any uh, insights into herbs or formulas or anything like that. I'm also a 10th generation herbalist, anything like that. So you can always DM me and I will definitely get back to you right away. If you have any questions or anything that you would like to chime in on that you may have heard, because I probably generally what I do after this, the highlights of this live I put out there, and then as soon as I can download it, then I put it up to YouTube mostly. Sometimes it takes a little longer, but mostly I'll do that. And then I'll go from there. So thank you very much. I appreciate you all. Odabo.